Chapter 1705. Half an hour ago, when the system transferred Wu Yan, Flandrachon and Yukari to the Gensokia world, the world warped and Wu Yan's vision blurred. Wu Yan felt the soft body he was hugging lose its weight and disappear. Before he could react, the system's cold voice echoed in his mind. Beep. Detected that user has entered a dungeon. Beep. User has the right to choose the fourth phase of the Demigod Path mission. System has determined the current dungeon world user has entered. Automatically generating the fourth phase of the Demigod Path mission. Beep. Extracting the current dungeon world information. Ding. Current dungeon world information collection complete. Beep. Automatically generating the fourth phase of the Demigod Path mission. Ding. Demigod Path mission has been generated. Ding. Demigod Path mission has been activated. Special mission, Demigod Path mission phase, fourth phase mission world, Fantasy Village mission details. Obtain blood essence with the power of fantasy, X1, blood essence with the power of state, X1, blood essence with the power of eternity, X1, blood essence with the power of nature, X1, blood essence with the power of time, X1, beep. This is the Demigod Path, special mission. The original mission has been cancelled. User can only choose to leave the dungeon world after completing the fourth phase of the Demigod Path mission. Reminder: the time ratio between the dungeon world and the real world is 100. 1. User can train in the dungeon world without any worries. Have a good time. In less than 2 to 3 seconds, the system's voice rang again and again. The system's voice turned into the most basic of memories. The information and system's notifications were engraved into Wu Yan's mind like an implant. For a moment Wu Yan felt a stabbing pain in his head. When the stabbing pain subsided, his blurry vision gradually returned to normal. The distorted world slowly returned to normal. However, the world that was imprinted into Wu Yan's vision, it was no longer the same world as before. And the first moment he entered the other world, before Wu Yan could get a clear look at the scene in front of him, a clear pa sound came from beneath his feet. At the same time a crisp sound rang out. Wu Yan also felt it. One of his own feet. It sank deeply into a groove. She felt her feet sink into a groove with a crisp sound. Wu Yan could not help but be stunned for a moment. He did not bother to observe where he was and subconsciously lowered his head. He looked at his feet. Then Wu Yan saw it. Under his feet there was something that looked like a box. The lid of the box had been crushed by him and one of his feet had sunk deep into the box. Not only did it crack the box but it also broke through the bottom. Looking at the box that had basically turned into sawdust under his feet, Wu Yan was somewhat at a loss. What's going on? However, while Wu Yan was at a loss, in front of him, there was a figure that seemed to be entangled by a ferocious ghost. An extremely shrill scream resounded. No! In the shrill scream, Wu Yan was almost scared out of his wits. After quickly suppressing the faint instinct in his body, he raised his head and looked in front of him. It was not until then that Wu Yan saw the scene in front of him clearly. First, what was imprinted in Wu Yan's eyes was only a wooden building that seemed to have a bit of history. The building's area was not very vast. It was almost equivalent to the area of a family's house. There was not a single stone brick on the building. The entire building was made of wood and the roof was made of rubble. In addition, whether it was the door, the windows, the corridor or the floor, they were all made of wood. It was somewhat old and gave a rather historical feeling at a glance. This wooden building was an extremely typical shrine. At the entrance of the shrine, in front of the main gate, stood a young lady. In terms of appearance, she was definitely the top type of young lady. The young lady was about 16 or 17 years old. She had an extremely soft head of long black hair that was tied up with a huge bow on her head. The hair at her temples was also tied up with a hairband and fixed in front of her body. The young lady wore a costume that was very different from the traditional witch costume, but still had traces of the witch costume. However, unlike the traditional witch costume that was white at the top and red at the bottom, the young lady's witch costume was entirely red. Only the edges of the costume were white and pleated. It was extremely unique. Of course, the most unique thing about this witch costume was that not only did it reveal her shoulders, but it also revealed her armpits. It didn't seem to have any sleeves either. The girl was also wearing a pair of long glove-like sleeves and a necktie. With the addition of this unique witch costume, the young lady who was originally very beautiful was so beautiful that one could not bear to look away. It was a pity that such a perfect young lady in all aspects was currently holding her face with both hands. Her face was filled with despair, fear, and disbelief as if she had encountered the end of the world. Boli Ling Meng, level 79. Seeing the young lady named Boli Ling Meng's expression as if she had encountered the end of the world and her beautiful eyes stared straight at the crushed box under her feet with a face full of despair, Wu Yan could not help but have a bad feeling in his heart. Boli Ling Meng? In that case, the young lady in front of him was the manager of the fantasy paradise, the witch in charge of guarding the Boli Great Barrier, of the Boli Shrine? Then was he in the Boli Shrine now? Thinking up to here, then thinking of the original Boli Ling Meng's personality and his current situation, Wu Yan suddenly felt a chill in his heart. Boli Ling Meng was someone who was not interested in anything and was extremely indifferent to fame and fortune. She was even more pure than monks and nuns. If there was any personal temptation that Boli Ling Meng had, it would be that she was extremely greedy for money. Therefore, to Boli Ling Meng the most important thing was undoubtedly money. And the most important thing was the money box that could help her collect incense money. Now, the extremely indifferent Boli Ling Meng looked at the crushed box under her feet with an expression of despair. Then, the broken box under my feet, could it be? Thinking of the possibility in his heart, Wu Yan suddenly became uneasy. On the other hand, Boli Ling Meng maintained the appearance of holding her face. The despair on her face slowly turned into absent-mindedness. Like a body that had lost its soul, she walked over shakily. Instinctively, Wu Yan retreated, trying not to agitate Boli Ling Meng as much as possible. He slowly retreated, allowing Boli Ling Meng to arrive in front of the pile of junk. Once she arrived in front of the pile of junk, Boli Ling Meng knelt on the ground with a puss sound. Her hands trembled as she picked up the junk on the ground, as if she was trying to put them back together, piling them up like building blocks. Of course, using such a method, it was impossible for the pile of junk to return to its original state. However, Boli Ling Meng was like a mental patient with a dull face. She kept repeating her actions and muttering nervously. Money box, my money box. As expected. To be able to agitate Boli Ling Meng to such an extent, that pile of junk could only be the money box of Boli Shrine. While Wu Yan couldn't help but ridicule her, he also felt a bit guilty when he saw Boli Ling Meng's panicked look. Although he felt that it was better not to agitate the other party, Wu Yan still chose to raise his hand and said weakly, "I'm sorry, I didn't mean to, money box. Boli Ling Meng did not pay attention to Wu Yan. She was still trying to piece the junk together, trying to put her money box back together. Seeing this, Wu Yan became even more embarrassed. Although I didn't mean to, it's just a money box, it shouldn't be a big problem, right? There's no money inside anyway, right? Boli Ling Meng's hand that was piecing together the money box shook violently. She lowered her head and her body began to emit black gas. Obviously, the biggest pain in Boli Ling Meng's heart was beautifully stabbed by Wu Yan. Chapter 1706. Boli Ling Meng felt that today was definitely the most nightmarish day of her life in the past 10 years. Originally, as the manager of Fantasy Village and the guardian of the Great Boli Barrier, as long as nothing major happened in Fantasy Village, Boli Ling Meng would live a leisurely life. Today was the same. After waking up early in the morning and eating breakfast, Boli Ling Meng picked up the broom in Boli Shrine and leisurely swept the shrine to pass the time. However, in less than 10 minutes, the broom in Boli Ling Meng's hand suddenly broke for no reason. At first, Boli Ling Meng didn't think much of it. She thought that the broom had been used for too long and was too old, so it had died of old age. She went to the storehouse to get some tools to fix the broom and then continued to clean the shrine. However, the broom in her hand broke again and again for more than 10 times. Boli Ling Meng also fixed the broom for more than 10 times before she finally felt that something was wrong. No matter how old the broom was, it shouldn't have broken so many times, right? As a shrine's witch, Boli Ling Meng should have some faith. Unfortunately, Boli Ling Meng didn't believe in any gods. However, it wasn't hard to understand why she would associate some bad things with gods and supernatural forces. Because of this, Boli Ling Meng felt that her broom had been broken so many times. Could this be a bad omen? When the broom in her hand finally broke for the 11th time, Boli Ling Meng believed it. Today, something unfortunate will definitely happen. When this thought rose in Bo Li Ling Meng's mind, outside the shrine, a crisp shattering sound echoed in the silent space and entered Bo Li Ling Meng's ears. Hearing that crisp shattering sound, Bo Li Ling Meng's hand trembled. After shouting in her heart, she rushed out of the shrine and forcefully opened the shrine's door. Then Bo Li Ling Meng saw a scene that was like a nightmare to her. Her most precious money box, by a man who didn't even look at it, stepped on it. And it was the kind that was stepped on to pieces. Not only did he crush her, but he had also stepped on that strange man when she was heartbroken. He even mentioned the most painful truth for Bo Li and Ling Meng. This made Bo Li Ling Meng's heart go crazy. Could it be? Do I need you to remind me that no one comes to the Bori shrine to worship, so the money box is empty all day long? On the other side, Ling Meng lowered her head as she looked at Bo Li. Wu Yan's heart began to beat faster when he saw the black qi all over his body. Don't think that Bo Li Ling Meng was weak just because she was only level 79, the pinnacle of tier 8. She was definitely the most invincible existence in Fantasy Village. This was not a joke. It was the truth. As the name implied, as the manager of the Fantasy Village and the protector of the Great Bali Barrier, Bo Li Ling Meng was invincible in the Fantasy Village, or more accurately in the Great Bali Barrier. As long as she was within the range of the Bori Great Barrier, Bo Li Ling Meng would enter an extremely magical state. If others attacked her, they would not be able to hit her at all. However, when she attacked others, not only would she be able to hit them, she could even increase the power of her attacks when necessary. Not only that, Bo Li Ling Meng also had an ability called God's Possession. She could use the same method as Spirit Descent to invite a god to possess her and display unimaginable combat strength. In other words, in Fantasy Village, not only would Bo Li Ling Meng not be injured, she could even cheat when necessary. Against such an opponent, even Violet, the creator of Fantasy Village, would not be able to do anything to her. Therefore, angering Bo Li Ling Meng in Fantasy Village was definitely a very irrational thing to do. This shameless red and white witch would not fly into a rage out of humiliation and directly go berserk, right? The more he thought about it, the more Wu Yan felt that it was possible. In order to not cause any trouble, Wu Yan sighed. Well, it is indeed my fault that I stepped on your things. Don't worry, I will be responsible for repairing them. When such a sentence came out, the black gas on Bo Li Ling Meng's body stagnated as if it did not exist in the first place and retreated back into Bo Li Ling Meng's body. Then Bo Li Ling Meng raised her head and looked at Wu Yan with a doubtful gaze. Really? Seeing Bo Li Ling Meng's doubtful expression, Wu Yan could not help but roll his eyes. It's just a money box, do I have to lie to you? What do you mean by, just a money box? Bo Li Ling Meng raised her eyebrows. That is the most important godly item in the Bori Shrine. Godly item? If I could stuff myself full of money every day, then it would be a godly item, but wouldn't it be empty all day? More like trash, right? Resisting the urge to complain, Wu Yan was too lazy to bother with Bo Li Ling Meng's correction. He walked in front of Bo Li Ling Meng and half knelt down. He stretched out a hand and pressed it on the pile of broken wood. Weng! The next moment mana gushed out. Wu Yan opened his mouth slightly and uttered a couple of incantations that turned the mana into a substantial form. That's how it worked. Under Bo Li Ling Meng's gaze, the broken money box trembled, and as if time was flowing backwards, it pieced itself back together bit by bit. Finally, it was restored to its original state. What? Seeing her money box restored to its original state, Bo Li Ling Meng's eyes lit up. Without caring about her image, she hugged the box that was half the size of her body. It's really fixed. Looking at how Bori and Ray Meng are rubbing against his money box like it's a treasure, Wu Yan dryly laughed and choked on his words. At this moment, Bo Li Ling Meng rubbed her money box while speaking to Wu Yan with a face full of joy. I thought you were a human who was lost from the outside world. I didn't expect you to be a mage. Although Fantasy Village could not be said to be a separate world and was still connected to the real world, due to the existence of the Bo Li barrier and the realm of illusion and reality, it could be said to be isolated from the real world. The only point of intersection between Fantasy Village and the real world was this Bo Li shrine. In a certain place in the real world there was also a Bo Li shrine. It was the same existence as the Bo Li shrine in Fantasy Village. Just like two sides of water, they were reflections of each other. If someone in the real world accidentally passed through the barrier of the Fantasy Village through the Bori shrine outside, then they would arrive at the Bori shrine in the Fantasy Village. Of course, Not everyone could pass through the enchantment of the fantasy village. Those who could pass through the enchantment of the fantasy village and come to the fantasy village either had some special place or had been forgotten by the people in the real world and lost in here. As the manager of Fantasy Village, Bo Li Ling Meng could not say that she knew everyone in Fantasy Village, but she could more or less tell if someone was from Fantasy Village from their aura. That was why she said that Wu Yan was lost in Fantasy Village. After all, Bo Li Ling Meng could not feel the aura of someone who lived in Fantasy Village from Wu Yan. As for the mage that Bo Li Ling Meng mentioned, it was a magician. In Fantasy Village there was no difference between magic and magic. As long as magic was used to create miracles, it was called magic. As for the existence that used magic, it was called a mage. Mage? Wu Yan scratched his cheek. Well, it doesn't matter if you think so. Hearing Wu Yan's perfunctory explanation, Bo Li Ling Meng glanced at him and did not ask further. She looked like she found it troublesome. I don't care if you're a human or a mage, since you're in Fantasy Village. As the manager of Fantasy Village, you should answer a few of my questions. Otherwise, if you get into trouble in the future, I'll be the one in trouble. All right. Wu Yan bitterly smiled. Although I can't guarantee that I can answer all your questions, I'll listen. You're quite arrogant, outsider. Bo Li Ling Meng curled her lips and stood up. She patted the dust off her knees and turned around to face Wu Yan. Then, tell me, what's your name? Name. Wu Yan blinked and rolled his eyes. He seemed to have thought of something and a strange smile appeared on his face. However, it quickly disappeared. Ahem. Wu Yan pretended to be serious and coughed. He looked at Bo Li Ling Meng and smiled. Nice to meet you. I'm Ba Yun Bai, the head of Ba Yun clan from the House of the Lost. Chapter 1707. Nice to meet you. My name is Yakumo Bai, the head of the House of the Lost. Yakumo Bai. When these words came out of the man's mouth, it was no surprise that Bo Li Ling Meng was stunned. It took her a long time to recover and reply in astonishment. Ha! Ma, I said I am the head of the House of the Lost, Yakumo, but you don't have to be so reserved. Wu Yan rubbed his head in embarrassment as if he's a noble trying to soothe a country bumpkin. Just treat me like an ordinary person, just call me Bai. Bai? Bo Li Ling Meng's eyes twitched. She took a deep breath and looked at Wu Yan with a sinister gaze. Are you kidding me? Kidding? Wu Yan asked innocently. Why do you say that? I don't know how you know about the House of the Lost, and I don't know how you know the surname Yakumo, but I don't feel the aura of someone who lived in the Fantasy Village. So you're from the outside world? Bo Li Ling Meng said with displeasure. There's no way I wouldn't know about you in the House of the Lost. You don't think I'm that gullible, do you? I didn't lie to you. Wu Yan sighed with an innocent expression. If you don't believe me, you can ask Yukari. My relationship with Yukari isn't shallow. This time, Bo Li Ling Meng was confused. It was just as Bo Li Ling Meng said. If the House of the Lost had someone with the surname Yakumo, it's impossible for Yukari to not know. After all, the relationship between the Bori Shrine and the House of the Lost was not shallow. One was the manager of the Fantasy Village, the other was the creator of the Fantasy Village. Bo Li Ling Meng and Yukari's relationship wasn't simple. If this Yakumo Bai was really from the House of the Lost, Yukari wouldn't hide it from Bo Li Ling Meng. However, this person who didn't have the aura of someone who lived in the Fantasy Village knew about the House of the Lost and said the name Yukari. It was obvious that he wasn't an outsider. Could it be? Could it be that she was mistaken? Bo Li Ling Meng knocked on her head in distress. She suddenly realized something and stared at Wu Yan. Even if you're from the House of the Lost, the head. Do you think I'll believe you? House of the Lost. Yakumo. To put it bluntly, it was just the place where Z lived. In other words, the House of the Lost. Yukari is the real master. Being the head of the House of the Lost was just a bunch of nonsense. Wu Yan seemed to have expected such a question from Bori Raimu. He grinned in response. It's natural for you to find it strange, but I am indeed the head of the House of the Lost. To be precise, I should be the future head of the House of the Lost. Because. Wu Yan grinned at Bo Li Ling Meng. What he said made Bo Li Ling Meng flabbergasted. Purple is my fiancé. What did you say? Bo Li Ling Meng cried out. Yukari is your fiancé? That's it. Wu Yan humbly told Bo Li Ling Meng. Please take care of my House of the Lost in the future. This is definitely a joke. Bo Li Ling Meng seemed to have suffered a blow. She took 2 steps back and loudly shouted. How could anyone want that moldy old hag? Just as he said that, a black crack filled with eyeballs appeared above the shrine. Before Wu Yan and Ling Meng could react, a black beam of light shot out. The black beam of light fell straight down. Wu Yan and Ling Meng only saw a blur in front of their eyes. The black beam of light landed on the recently repaired cash box. The black beam of light blasted the cash box that Ling Meng treated as her life into powder. Not even a piece of wood was left as it dissipated with the wind. Li Ling Meng stared blankly at the original spot where the money box had been. Looking at the empty spot, not even a single piece of wood was left behind. She once again let out a desperate scream. My cash box! Amidst her sorrowful cries, Li Ling Meng threw herself onto the ground where the money box had originally been. It was as if the money box had not disappeared, but had instead become invisible. Her delicate hands groped around the box, but of course she could not find anything. It's gone. It's really gone. Tears gushed out of Bori Rei's eyes. She raised her head and looked at the gap in the sky above the Bori shrine as she screamed in rage. Yukari! Come out! Ling Meng yelled. Yukari did not come out of the crack. Instead the crack closed and disappeared. Seeing this, Bori Ling Meng was so angry that she wanted to die, but she couldn't do anything about it. Wu Yan, on the other hand, breathed a sigh of relief. Flandrachon and Yukari were not by his side when he first arrived at the fantasy village. Wu Yan was worried that something might have happened to them. Now, it seems like Yukari and Flandrachon have returned to the place where they were before they became Wu Yan's summons. Yukari, that be *starred. Wu Yan grumbled as he looked at the empty sky. Since you've been paying attention to this place, you should at least come out and show your face. You made me worry for nothing. That's right. Tell her to come out. Bori Ling Meng leapt up from the ground and arrived in front of Wu Yan. She grabbed Wu Yan by the collar and started shaking him. Tell her to come out. Tell her to come out. With Yukari's personality, she won't come out even if you yell your lungs out. Wu Yan felt dizzy. If you want to see Yukari, why don't you go to the House of the Lost and look for her yourself? If I can find the House of the Lost, why would I need you to tell her to come out? Ling Meng hissed. In the fantasy village, everyone only knows about the existence of the House of the Lost, but no one knows its exact location. Wu Yan asked curiously. He really didn't know about it. Even you don't know? On the surface, the relationship between Yukari and Ray Dream seemed to be very bad. But seriously speaking, not only did the two manage the fantasy village together, but as the shaman of the Ray Shrine, Ray Dream definitely had a closer relationship with Yukari than others. Does that mean Ling Meng doesn't know where the House of the Lost is? Every time Violet invited someone to the House of the Lost, she would directly use her ability to bring them there. I'm afraid only Yu Yuzi knows the real location of the House of the Lost. Bo Li's spirit dream grimaced. Aren't you the head of the House of the Lost? Don't tell me you don't know where your house is. Haha. Wu Yan chuckled. You're right. I really don't know where the House of the Lost is. You. Ling Meng's hands trembled as she clenched her fist. She didn't hit Wu Yan's head with it. Instead, she let go of Wu Yan's collar. Forget it. If that's the case, you'll have to fix my money box again. I can't do it this time. Wu Yan raised his hands in surrender. If there's any remains, it won't be hard to fix it. But now the money box has completely evaporated. There's not even a speck of dust left. I don't care. I don't care. Bo Ling Meng clearly intended to be shameless. If you can't fix it, you'll have to make me a new one. Huh? Wu Yan flinched at her words. But this time it wasn't me who broke your money box. Aren't you the head of the House of the Lost? Aren't you Yukari's fiancé? Bo Ling Meng waved her hand impatiently. If that's the case, Yukari broke my things. Don't you have to take responsibility? This time Wu Yan was speechless. Wu Yan was speechless. Hurry up and finish my money box. Bo Ling Meng lightly snorted. Otherwise, when people come to pay their respects, what if they don't see the money box and think they don't have to donate anymore? Don't worry. Wu Yan complained. No one will come to pay their respects. What did you say? Nothing. Then hurry up and do it. Bo Ling Meng turned around and walked into her shrine without looking back. As she walked, she muttered to herself. Yukari, she really has a fiancé. Since that gap appeared, It means that Yukari has been paying attention to the situation here. Since Yukari didn't come out to deny it, it means that she admitted it. Lingmeng could only choose to believe it. Chapter 1708. In one of the areas of the fantasy village there was an antique village. The human realm. In the fantasy village, there were all kinds of non-human creatures such as monsters, fairies and demon spirits. Even the gods lived in it. Although there were also humans, compared to those non-human creatures, humans were a weaker race. Unlike the non-human creatures who were born with a certain amount of power or even a huge amount of power, humans were born with no advantages. If there was nothing special, they would not have any power at all. However, monsters, fairies, demon spirits and so on were all races that would attack humans, devour them and feed on them. This caused the humans living in the fantasy village to not only have a very low status, but it was also accompanied by danger everywhere. The human realm was the main settlement of the humans in the fantasy village. In addition to humans, there were also a few monsters and other races living here. The non-human races living in the human realm generally had no hostility to humans and would not attack them. Therefore, there were not many monsters living in the human realm, but it was very common for monsters to come to the human realm to do things. Because the human realm was the only place in the fantasy village that could be called a normal place. The humans living here would not only open all kinds of shops to make a living, but some obedient monsters would also open shops here. There were also school buildings that specialized in teaching human children to read. It was just like an ordinary village. It was very peaceful. The daily necessities that humans needed could be bought here. The things that monsters and other non-human creatures needed could also be found here. Some shops would be open until late at night and become exclusive shops for monsters, so that the monsters who were active at night could be active during that time. So during normal times, even the monsters and other races outside the human realm would come to the human realm to shop. In addition, there were people who specialized in repelling monsters living in the human realm. Bully Witch and the Monster Sage would also protect the human realm from behind. If one lived in the human realm, it was very safe and wouldn't be attacked by life forms of other races. Of course, it was another story if one went out. At this time it was morning. There was still some time before noon, but the mortal world was very lively. Many people came to buy groceries for lunch, shuttling back and forth on the streets. Some monsters also mingled in the crowd, patronizing some shops. The entire human realm was like an ancient market, bustling with noise and excitement. On this bustling street there were many people. Amidst the flow of people, a cute little girl also came here. As she walked, she sucked on her finger and looked left and right as if she had no relatives. The newcomer. It was Flandrechan who had escaped from the Scarlet Devil Mansion. After escaping from the Scarlet Devil Mansion, Flandrechan flew at her fastest speed and ended up in the human world. Originally, Flandrechan had been locked up in the basement by Remilia for 495 years. Other than the Scarlet Devil Mansion basically. He had never taken a single step outside. Under such circumstances, Flandrechan really wanted to find Wu Yan, but she didn't know where to look. She could only choose a random direction and search aimlessly. The reason she stopped at the human realm was because it was very lively. Not only did it attract Flandrechan's attention, but it also made Flandrechan think that her brother might be here as well. And so, Flandrechan began to wander around the human realm. Of course, she was also aimless. Looking at the owners of the surrounding shops shouting and observing the people who walked past them, Zhou Xian thought to himself, what a pity. Flandrechan carefully avoided the crowd while sucking on her finger like a lost child, mumbling pitifully. Big brother, where are you? On the street, many people noticed this unusually cute little girl who was dressed differently and had a pair of broken crystal wings on her back. They all felt that she seemed to be lost and hesitated whether they should go up and ask her about it. But in the midst of hesitation, no one chose to approach her. It wasn't that the humans in Fantasy Village were all cold and indifferent. It was just that this little girl with broken wings and a crystal was obviously not a human. Moreover, she had never shown her face in the human realm before. Facing such an unknown existence who might be a monster, no matter how cute she was, no one dared to approach her recklessly. Who knows, maybe she hates humans and doesn't want to interact with them. If she approached, she might be attacked. Under the gazes of many passers-by, Flandrechan sucked on her finger and looked around. But not long after, Flandrechan stopped in her tracks and fixed her gaze on a shop in front of her. It was a shop selling baked bread. Looking at the piping hot baked bread, Flandre couldn't help but cover her stomach, feeling a little hungry. Ugh. Flandre was in a dilemma. Big brother. She wanted to continue looking for her brother, but she also wanted to buy something to eat. For Flandre, this small conflict was enough to make her feel a little troubled. But in the end, Flandre couldn't overcome her desire for the baked bread. She walked to the front of the shop and stared at the baked bread. Little girl. The shop owner seemed to have noticed Flandre standing in front of the shop. He hesitated for a moment before choosing to approach her and ask carefully, "Do you want to eat a baked bread?" Flandre looked up, her cute big eyes looked at the shop owner, who was at least 10 years old, and nodded. Flandre is hungry. Seeing that this non-human little girl didn't seem to reject humans, the shop owner heaved a sigh of relief and a smile appeared on his face. "Then do you want to buy a baked bread?" "Yes." Flandre nodded without hesitation. Her adorable look made the shop owner's face soften despite knowing that she wasn't human. "All right. 1 baked bread." The shop owner grabbed a piping hot baked bread and stuffed it into a paper bag that could only hold half of it before passing it to Flandre. "Thank you for your patronage." Flandre smiled happily. Just as she was about to reach out for the baked bread, an anxious voice sounded behind her. "Flan." Hearing the voice, Flandre's happy smile instantly crumbled. She turned her head around indignantly and looked towards the source of the voice. Not far away on the other side of the street, 2 figures were standing there. One was a petite girl about the same height as Flandre. The other was a silver-haired maid holding a parasol for the petite girl. The other was a frail girl dressed like pajamas. She was panting slightly. They were Remilia, Lai Yi and Patrice. "Flan." Remilia's anxious expression softened when she saw Flandre standing in front of a shop. She was about to reach out for a biscuit when she saw Flandre. Instead, she was filled with anger. "I finally found you. Little sister." Patrice calmed her rapid heartbeat and breathing. She was surprised to see Flandre standing on the street. "Not only are you not afraid of water, you're not even afraid of sunlight?" "Second, miss," Lai Yi said worriedly. "Why don't you come over and let me hold the parasol for you?" "I don't need it," Flandre said angrily. "Big sister, how did you find this place?" "A fairy reported that she saw you enter the human realm, so we rushed over," Patrice explained. "Little sister, Remy was very worried about you. She didn't even care about the sun outside and insisted on coming out to find you." Hearing this, the anger on Fran's face dissipated. She looked at Remilia, who was cowering under the parasol, and lowered her head. "Big sister is such an idiot. You're the idiot. You almost caused the entire Scarlet Devil Mansion to collapse," Remilia shouted. "Hurry up and come home with us. Flan won't compromise on this," Flandre stubbornly said. "Big sister is a bad person. Why did you have to lock Flandre in the basement? Isn't that because you're always causing trouble?" Remilia said irritably. "Do you want to keep causing trouble for Big sister?" "Of course not," Flandre retorted. "Then Big sister, do you think Flandre is causing trouble for Big sister?" Remilia, Patrice and Lai Yi were all speechless. Chapter 1709. At this moment, Remilia, Patrice and Black Knight finally calmed down after Flandre broke out of the Scarlet Fiend Mansion. Questions arose in their minds one after another. The first question was, of course, the reason why Flandre wasn't afraid of water or sunlight. As a vampire, Flandre's strength was above Remilia's. However, in terms of vampire bloodline, both of them weren't that far apart. Logically speaking, since Remilia was afraid of water and sunlight, Flandre should be the same. That was why whenever Flandre caused trouble and tried to break out of the Scarlet Fiend Mansion, Patrice would cast a spell to make it rain outside the mansion and force Flandre back. This method had clearly worked the last time, but this time, it had suddenly lost its effect. How could Remilia and the others not be puzzled, surprised or even shocked? The second question was, of course, Flandre's current state. Even though it didn't sound nice, Flandre had been in a crazy state ever since she was born. She basically didn't stop and wanted to find someone to play with her all day long. However, she didn't know the key point, and the more she played, the crazier she got. In the end, those who played with Flandre were all smashed into pieces. Even the items in the surroundings were affected. Flandre, who had gone crazy from playing, destroyed everything. It was because of this that Remilia had no choice but to lock Flandrachon up in the basement. But this time Remilia, Patrice and Black Knight were shocked to discover that the trace of craziness in Flandrachon's beautiful wine-red eyes was gone. Moreover, in the human world, in a place where there were so many people around, Flandrachon wasn't like before. Every time she met someone she would crazily ask them to play with her and play with them until they broke. She even blended into the crowd like an ordinary child. There wasn't the slightest feeling of being out of place. Remilia, Patrice and Black Knight, who thought that Flandrachon would start a massacre upon encountering strangers, looked at each other in dismay. It had been a while since they last saw Flandrachon. It hadn't been that long. But the last time they met Flandrachon was still as crazy as ever. She would even throw a tantrum every now and then. Why did she change so much this time? Flandrachon wasn't afraid of water or light. She was as normal as a child now. Could it be that something had happened to Flandrachon during the time she was in the basement that changed her? Could it be that Flandrachon wasn't crazy anymore? Remilia couldn't help but feel a little excited. If Flandrachon was really like a normal person, then wouldn't the two sisters be able to live a good life together and not have to imprison her? Suiyi seemed to have thought of the same thing, and a trace of surprise appeared on her pretty face. Patrice was the only one who remained calm. She looked at Flandrachon and probed. Sister, don't you want to find someone to play with you? Remilia and Lei Yi couldn't help but hold their breaths. Play? Flandrachon's eyes lit up. She seemed to be tempted. But when she remembered that she had other matters to attend to, she withered away like a frosted eggplant. Flan wants to play too, but I have to find my brother. Brother? This time Remilia, Patrice and Night Eye were stunned. Brother? Since when did Flandrachon have a brother? That. The shop owner who was holding a sesame seed cake was troubled. Sesame seed cake, do you want more? Yes. Flandrachon replied without hesitation. She took the biscuit from the shopkeeper's hands with a bright smile. Then, as if she had thought of something, she rummaged through her clothes and took out a gold coin. Here's the money. With that, Flandrachon slammed the gold coin on the counter in front of the shopkeeper, leaving the shopkeeper dumbfounded. Not to mention the shop owner, even Remilia, Patrice and Midnight were dumbfounded. A gold coin? Why would Flandrachon have a gold coin? No, that's not right. When did Flandrachon learn how to buy things and know that she has to pay for things? That little girl. The shop owner didn't know that the cute little girl in front of him was once a killer fiend. He picked up the gold coin on the counter and handed it to Flandrachon with fear and trepidation. This amount is too big, I don't have any spare change for you. It wasn't just big. With this one gold coin, even if it wasn't enough to buy the shop, it would definitely be more than enough to buy him a month's worth of sesame seed cakes. With a small business like the sesame seed cake shop, how could they find any extra money? Flandrachon blinked her eyes. She looked at the sesame seed cake in her hand with reluctance. But Flandrachon only has a gold coin and I'm hungry. This? The shopkeeper's face was filled with embarrassment. After a long time he sighed. Forget it, this sesame seed cake is a gift for you, little girl. Really? Flandrachon looked like a blossoming flower with a happy smile on her face. Thank you. Ha ha ha. Seeing how happy Flandrachon is, the shopkeeper also laughed. Flandrachon picked up the gold coin and sneaked a glance at Remilia, Patrice and Dark Knight. Then she turned around and ran away like a wisp of smoke. Fran. Remilia was shocked. Chase after him. Remilia, Patrice and Little Knight also ran after Flandrachon. Fran. Stop right there. It was Remilia's exasperated yell that sounded like she was going crazy. Sister. Go back quickly. Flandrachon yelled without even turning her head. Second miss. Please stop. While carefully holding an umbrella for Remilia, she ran in small steps to match her young miss footsteps. Away. Flandrachon started to bite the sesame seed cake in her hand, but she still insisted on running away. Tis it. Milady. It was Patrice who had a weak body and suffered from asthma. She had been squatting at home all this while and her stamina was starting to weaken. Patrice. You better go back quickly. Flandrachon turned around and stuck out her tongue at Remilia, Patrice and Dark Knight while making a face. Just like that, for beautiful girls, big and small, were engaged in a chase on a street in the land of the living. Along the way, Flandrachon's bell-like laughter, Remilia's exasperated yell, Dark Knight's anxious and worried call, and Patrice's increasingly hurried breathing mixed together and attracted the attention of many. This state lasted for roughly 5 minutes before the sickly Patrice couldn't hold on any longer. Her legs went soft and she fell forward. Smack. Thank you. With a crisp sound, Patrice uttered an extremely adorable word and wailed miserably as she smashed onto the ground. Patrice. Lord Patrice. Remilia and Zhou Yi immediately cried out in alarm and stopped their footsteps. Patrice, who was lying on the ground with her face on the ground, raised her trembling hand. I am fine. After stammering out those words, Patrice's hand fell down as though she had fainted and didn't move an inch. Patrice, Lord Patrice. Remilia and Dark Knight's sorrowful cries echoed through the streets. Wah! Flandre was chewing on a sesame seed cake in front of him. She exclaimed as she chewed. Flan seems to have gone overboard with her play. Flan. Remilia was furious at Flandre's words. If you continue to fool around, Big Sister will really be angry. Flan isn't afraid. Flandre snorted. Even if Big Sister is angry, Flan will still look for Big Brother. What Big Brother? Remilia shouted. When did you have a big brother? Why didn't I know about it? Flandre's expression froze and her expression turned gloomy. Of course Big Sister doesn't know. Big Sister never cared about Flan, who stayed in the basement. Remilia opened her mouth and looked at Flandre's gloomy expression. Guilt welled up in her heart and she couldn't say anything else. Flandre composed herself and said angrily to Remilia. Anyway, Flan won't go back before finding Big Brother. Remilia, Dark Knight and Patrice, who was lying on the ground, felt a headache coming on. What should they do? Chapter 17:10. What a scam. In the wooden corridor of a warehouse on the west side of the Bori Shrine, a man with black hair and red eyes held a hammer in his hand. He looked at the sky and sighed, but at the same time he swiftly nailed a few pieces of wood together with nails to make a money box. I didn't expect that today I would pick up a hammer and work as a carpenter. If the people in the Spalier world knew that a peak rank 9 powerhouse who was about to ascend to the demigod level was working as a carpenter with a hammer, they would definitely be shocked. However, there was no other way. Bori Dream's money box had been completely destroyed. It was impossible to repair it with magic. If he wanted a money box, he would have to make something out of nothing. It was not that Wu Yan didn't know how to do magic of this level. Just like Blackie in the world of magical girl Ilya, didn't she know how to use class cards and projection magic to create something out of nothing? There were also magic similar to projection magic in the 103,000 magic books. Due to his personal issues, he couldn't create a noble artifact using that kind of magic. However, creating a money box is just a matter of time. However, just like the projection magic, this type of magic that was created out of nothing had the biggest drawback. That was, once the mana used to create an item was exhausted, the created item would also disappear. Wu Yan didn't want to keep replenishing mana just to maintain the existence of a money box. Therefore he could only do it himself. He had enough food and clothing. As expected, common sense is the most useless thing in genjutsu. Holding a hammer, Wu Yan hammered on the money box that was slowly taking shape in front of him. Wu Yan had a conflicted expression on his face. That red-white, even the fiancé of the creator of Fantasy Village could be ordered to do this kind of thing. Who would have thought of this if it was somewhere else? Of course he kept complaining, but in his heart, Wu Yan never thought that this kind of situation would be degrading just because he had some strength. He was just complaining casually. His consciousness took advantage of this moment to sink into the content of the 4th round of his Demigod Path mission. Special mission, Demigod Path Mission Chain, 4th Mission World, Fantasy Village Mission Details. Obtain Blood Essence with Fantasy Power X1, Blood Essence with State Power X1, Blood Essence with Eternal Power X1, Blood Essence with Nature Power X1, Blood Essence with Time Power X1. After confirming the content of his 4th mission, Demigod Path, Wu Yan frowned. Blood Essence? This was easy to understand. It was just extracted from the human body. Blood without any impurities. Blood Essence containing Fantasy Power. Blood Essence containing Realm Powers Realm Power. Blood Essence containing Eternal Power. Blood Essence containing Nature Power. Blood Essence containing Time Power. There were a total of 5 types of Blood Essence. He found all of them. Wu Yan will be able to complete the 4th segment of the Demigod Path quest. But where should he find these blood essence? Blood essence that contains the power of one's realm? That should be referring to Purple's blood essence that had the ability to control realms, right? The other 4 types should refer to the blood essence of those who had the corresponding abilities. Blood essence containing fantasy power referred to the blood essence of those who had the ability related to fantasy. Blood essence containing eternal power referred to the blood essence of those who had the ability related to eternity. Blood essence containing nature power referred to the blood essence of those who had the ability related to nature. Blood essence containing time power referred to the blood essence of those who had the ability related to time. In other words, all he needed to do was to find existences with abilities related to fantasy, realm, eternity, nature, and time, and obtain their blood to complete the 4th round of the Demigod Path mission. Eternity. Time. Wu Yan swung the hammer in a daze as he hammered away at the money-stuffing box. If it's realm, it must be Z. In the fantasy village, no one else has the ability related to realm, except for Z. I more or less know about eternity and time. If it's nature, it should be that person. But who is this fantasy? While mulling over the background of the person he's looking for, Wu Yan also completed the money box in his hand. Bang, bang, bang. That's it. Wu Yan hit the money box a few more times before he put down the hammer in satisfaction. He patted the box that was almost the same as the one he destroyed, but it was much bigger. Hurry up and give this to that shameless Red-White. Then go and get a drop of blood from Violet. If I'm not wrong, Violet should be in the House of the Lost. That's where she was before I summoned her. Wu Yan's face froze at the end of his sentence. The place where Violet was before she was summoned by Mengqi? Flandrachan should be in the same place, right? Is there any other place where Flandrachan was before she was summoned? The basement of Scarlet Fiend Mansion. It was a place that left Flandrachan with endless trauma and hatred. Given how much Flandrachan hated the basement of the Scarlet Fiend Mansion, if she had returned to the basement the moment she returned to Fantasy Village, she would either be hiding there helplessly or she would have already caused a ruckus in the Scarlet Fiend Mansion. Wu Yan couldn't sit still any longer. He stood up and he rushed towards the shrine. When he arrived at the entrance of the shrine, he pushed the door open and he shouted without hesitation. Red-White. Bo Li Ling Meng, who was leisurely sitting in front of a table and drinking tea, was startled by the sudden cry. A mouthful of scalding hot tea smoothly slid down her throat, causing her eyes to widen in shock. Wah! Immediately, Bo Li Ling Meng jumped up from the ground and ran around the shrine. Tears flowed down her face as she fanned her tongue with all her might. Water! 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 Seeing the chaotic scene, Wu Yan raised his hand and he channeled his magic power into it. At the next moment, an azure magical ritual appeared above Bori Lingming's head. It spun and a waterfall of water poured down like rain. Splash! Amidst the splashing sound of water, Bo Li Lingmeng's entire body was drenched by the water from the sky. She instantly turned into a drowned rat. Drip! Water droplets slid down from Bo Li Lingmeng's body and dripped onto the soaked floor. Bo Li Lingmeng's robe clung tightly to her body, revealing the curves of her delicate body. Bori Lingming's tongue seems to have cooled down, but she didn't look happy at all. She stared at Wu Yan, who is standing at the door, like she wants to poke a hole in his body with her gaze. The look in her eyes is extremely dangerous. Haha. Wu Yan smiled bitterly under Bori Lingming's murderous gaze. You asked for water, so I gave you water. Thank you so much. Maybe it's too much of a hassle, so Ling Meng glanced at Wu Yan. She grabbed her skirt and started twirling the water. Wu Yan couldn't help but look at Bo Li Ling Meng's skirt that hiked up to her knees, looking at her fair thighs. Wu Yan retracted his gaze after a quick glance and he asked Ling Meng instead. Red-White, where is Red Devil Mansion? My name is not Red-White. My name is Ling Meng. Bori Ling Meng glared at Wu Yan. Red Devil Mansion? Why are you looking for Red Devil Mansion? I don't have time to explain, tell me the location first. Wu Yan raised his voice. Otherwise, if things get out of hand as the manager of Fantasy Town, you won't be able to relax. Things get out of hand? Bo Li Ling Meng's brows furrowed as well. What are you talking about? Didn't I tell you to tell me the location first? Anxious, Wu Yan jumped in front of Bori Lingmeng and grabbed her shoulder. Hurry up and tell me the location of Red Devil Mansion. Let me go. Bori Lingmeng's body trembled as it was the first time she was touched by someone of the opposite sex. An unnatural expression appeared on her face as she struggled. In the end, as she struggled, Bori Lingmeng was hit by the water dripping from her body. She let out a cry of surprise as she fell forward. Chapter 17:11. In the air not far from the Bori Shrine, a figure is flying towards the Bori Shrine at a leisurely pace. However, rather than saying that it is a figure flying towards the Bori Shrine, it would be more accurate to say that it is a figure riding on a broom. Like a witch, using the broom to fly towards the Bori Shrine. The one riding on the broom is a girl dressed as a witch, but she looks neither fish nor fowl. She had curly blonde hair that reached her waist and fluttered in the wind. There was a braid at the front of her bangs that hung in front of her body. There was a bow ornament on the braid that swayed along with her long hair. The young lady was dressed in a standard black sorceress outfit, but she had a white half-apron on the outside. She wore a wide black triangular sorcerer hat on her head. The hat was decorated with a large butterfly knot, and the color of the butterfly knot was white. This is a girl that is very similar to Bori Lingmeng in all aspects. Bori Lingmeng's entire body aside from her hair was only red and white. This young girl's entire body aside from her hair was only black and white. In fact, this girl is also called this by others. Unfortunate Black and White. Original name, Misty Rain Devil Lisa. In the fantasy land where monsters are everywhere and gods are also present, Misty Rain Devil Lisa is an extremely rare human who has the power to rival monsters. Her job is a mage. Moreover, she is also a human who is bored to death all day long and wants to find a person or monster to fight. She is a very lively human. It's so boring. Isn't there anything interesting happening? Riding on the broom like a witch, Misty Rain Devil Lisa flies towards the Bori Shrine while faintly sighing. For example, mutation or something. Mutation. That refers to something that can cause the fantasy land to fall into an abnormal state. It is a strange phenomenon caused by a certain existence or a certain number of existences. These strange phenomena that can cause the fantasy land to fall into an abnormal state, whether it is man-made or because of the environment, are all collectively known as mutation. And to solve the mutation, it is the manager of the fantasy land. It is the job of the witch of the Bori Shrine. This black and white witch who is currently flying towards the Bori Shrine can also be considered an expert in solving mutations. Of course, the so-called expert in solving mutations is just because Misty Rain Devil Lisa is too bored. Every time there is a mutation, she will eagerly follow behind Bori Lingmeng. She is even more active than Bori Lingmeng in solving the mutation, thus obtaining the title. This is a person who really wants to kill time and wants to see the world in chaos. Bori Lingmeng, who is greedy for small gains and money, but is also abnormally lazy. Apart from their clothes being compatible, they are a completely different person. I wonder if there are any interesting things thrown in from the outside world at the Bori Shrine? Misty Rain Devil Lisa's face is full of expectations as she giggles. If there is, I will borrow it to play with Lingmeng. The borrow is the witch's, it's the witch. It means that although it is a borrow, in the hands of Misty Rain Devil Lisa, the things she borrows will never be returned. Not only that, Misty Rain Devil Lisa's borrow is completely different from other people's. Her borrow means that she doesn't need the owner's permission to take away the things she wants. In other words, she is stealing. Very simple, understand? Thus, Misty Rain Devil Lisa, who is known as a mage but is actually a black and white bandit, arrived at the Bori Shrine with the help of her own magic tools. She descended in front of the Bori Shrine's entrance. Lingmeng. After shouting loudly, Misty Rain Devil Lisa didn't have the intention to knock on the door and directly opened it. I came to see you. You. Misty Rain Devil Lisa's voice became weaker and weaker. Her expression also changed rapidly. In the end, it turned into an extremely shocked expression. Marissa? Inside the shrine, Bori Lingmeng's panicked and shocked voice rang out. However, Bori Lingmeng's voice came from the ground. In Misty Rain Devil Lisa's eyes, Bori Lingmeng's body was drenched as she sat on the ground. No. More accurately, it should be said that Bori Lingmeng was completely drenched, her fair skin exposed to the air through her red and white robe, appearing extremely alluring. Currently she was sitting on top of a man lying on the ground, a man that Misty Rain Devil Xianxia had never seen before. He raised his head and looked at her with a dazed expression. That's right. She is sitting on a man lying on the ground. A woman on top and a man on the bottom. A perfect example of a woman on top and a man on the bottom. It is because of this that Misty Rain Devil Xianxia, who doesn't care about details, was so shocked that she couldn't react for a long time. Misty Rain Devil Xianxia and Bori Lingmeng are good friends. At least that is what Misty Rain Devil Xianxia thinks. Indeed, in the fantasy village, other than Yukari, the one who dares to say that she knows Bori Lingmeng the best is definitely Misty Rain Devil Xianxia. In Misty Rain Devil Xianxia's understanding, Bori Lingmeng is someone who is not interested in anything. She is not even interested in the things that her identity as a Bori shrine witch should do. She is a lazy person who is only interested in money. Such a person was now sitting on a man's body in a position where the woman was on top and the man was below. What would Misty Rain Devil Xianxia think? She would think, "Oh, Lingmeng." With a trembling finger, Misty Rain Devil Xianxia pointed at Bori Lingmeng and shouted in shock. You finally found your duty as a woman. Do you plan to follow the steps of an adult and continue the Bori Shrine's legacy? Just as Misty Rain Devil Xianxia's voice fell, a pop sound came from Bori Lingmeng's head. Seems like something broke. Veins popped out on her forehead. Bori Lingmeng didn't even think and directly shouted at Misty Rain Devil Xianxia. Who would want to do something as troublesome as giving birth to a child? Hearing this, Wu Yan, who was being pressed down by Bori Lingmeng, couldn't help but ridicule. So you already know that you are someone who can't do something as important as giving birth to a child? What did you say? Bori Lingmeng was furious. She raised her fist and punched towards Wu Yan's chest. You are the one who can't do something as important as giving birth to a child. I really can't do that. Wu Yan quickly got up and shouted as if he couldn't take it anymore. Can you hit me with less force? Can you get up first? Hearing this, Bori Lingmeng remembered that not only was she in close contact with the man under her, she was also twisting around on top of him. She was being taken advantage of. Bori Lingmeng jumped up as if she was electrocuted. She pulled away from Wu Yan and shouted at Wu Yan. I'm sure now. You are the one who caused my broom to break 11 times this morning. You are the one who will bring me misfortune. Don't talk nonsense. Wu Yan got up from the ground and patted the dust off his body. He curled his lips and pointed at Misty Rain Devil Xianxia. The only one who will bring misfortune is that black and white. You are that black and white. Your whole family is that black and white. Misty Rain Devil Xianxia was furious. However, she quickly asked with a face full of curiosity. Say, you actually have the ability to make Lingmeng push you down. Who exactly are you? Devil. Li. Boli Lingmeng couldn't help but take out her own imperial coin. It was a wooden stick with 2 long strips of paper wrapped around its tip. She angrily pointed it at Misty Rain Devil Xianxia. Do you want me to treat you? I am not a devil nor a spirit. Why would you treat me? Misty Rain Devil Xianxia was dissatisfied. However, she licked her lips in the next second. However, if you want to fight with me, I am more than happy to. You, stop yes me. Tell me where Scarlet Devil Mansion is. Let go of me. Bori Lingmeng struggled. Scarlet Devil Mansion? Misty Rain Devil Xianxia looked at Wu Yan in confusion. You want to go to Scarlet Devil Mansion? I don't have time to talk to you. Wu Yan looked at Misty Rain Devil Xianxia impatiently. Just tell me where Scarlet Devil Mansion is. Misty Rain Devil Xianxia was startled. She stretched out her hand and pointed in a direction. Following this voice, the 3 figures in the shrine disappeared without a trace. Chapter 17:12. On the other hand, in the human realm. Excuse me. Flandrachan stopped a middle-aged woman who was shopping for groceries. She tilted her head and asked in an innocent tone. Have you seen Fran's brother? Fran's brother. The middle-aged woman who was buying groceries was stunned. Who is Fran's brother? Fran's brother. Flandrachan was stunned for a moment before she answered seriously. Fran's brother is Fran's brother. The middle-aged woman was at a loss. She smiled bitterly. I'm sorry, I don't think I can help you find Fran's brother. Oh. Flandrachan lowered her head with a dejected expression, but she quickly pulled herself together and pulled on another passerby. Excuse me, have you seen Fran's brother? Fran? Who is Fran? Fran is Fran. Not far behind Flandrachon, Remilia, Patrice and Black Knight were left speechless as they watched Flandrachon pull one person from the left and the right to question her so-called brother, and watched her answer others' questions with a godlike theory. Although Flandrachon looked a lot more normal than before and she wouldn't attack people or play with them anymore, Flandrachon's mind was still very much intact. He's still like a child. With Flandrachon's way of questioning, she wouldn't be able to find out where her brother was even if she asked for the year 495. Puky. Remilia clenched her fists, loosened them, clenched them, loosened them and loosened them again. She kept repeating this action. Do you think Fran has become normal? Mississippi. Young mistress. Hearing Remilia's hopeful and nervous words, Remilia's voice was filled with hope. Kui Yi, who had never seen her mistress before, showed a gentle expression. Milady seems normal now. She looks normal. Really? Remilia's eyes never left Flandrachon, but the joy in her eyes was obvious. Does that mean Fran can live with us from now on? She doesn't have to be locked up in the basement anymore? Then. So you wanted to say something positive. By the side. Patrice interrupted. That may not be the case. Lady Patrice. Suyi looked at Patrice in shock. Patrice. Remilia couldn't help but look at Patrice. He asked nervously. Do you see any problems? Isn't the problem obvious? Patrice calmly explained. Although my dear sister looks like a child and is no longer as crazy as she used to be, but something that we can't understand also happened to my sister. Right now my dear sister isn't afraid of light or water. Her mind is like that of a child's, but her rationality is very complete. Can this be considered no problem? Patrice reminded him. Also, don't you think that there's something wrong with my sister's constant mention of a brother? Don't you think there's a problem? How was that possible? They clearly met not too long ago and Flandrachon had always been locked up in the basement. After a period of time she suddenly came out and not only did she become more normal, her weakness was also gone. Just like what Patrice said, apart from becoming normal and overcoming the weakness of being a vampire, Flandrachon also gained a big brother. All these signs point to the fact that something must have happened to Flandrachon. It was because of these things that Flandrachon was able to become normal and overcome her weaknesses. Patrice, you mean? Remilia spoke with a gloomy expression. Someone snuck into the Red Devil Hall without us noticing at all and even made contact with Fran? It's not as simple as that. Patrice nodded heavily. The person who came into contact with my dear sister might be the reason why she returned to normal and overcame her weakness as a vampire. Lady Patrice, in Fantasy Village there are people who can infiltrate Scarlet Devil Mansion without us noticing. Suyi frowned. But, is there someone who can help the second young mistress return to normal and overcome her weakness as a vampire? Remilia and Patrice went silent. If such a person really exists, Remilia would have gone up to them and even kneeled down to invite them back. Naturally, she wouldn't have let Flandrachon live a life of darkness for 495 years. There's no point in overthinking it. Patrice looked straight ahead at Flandrachon, who's still questioning the passers-by. Remy, I think we should ask my dear sister. That's right, young mistress. Suyi nodded in agreement. If the second young mistress really came into contact with someone while she was locked up in the basement, we should be able to get some information out of her. Remilia hesitated for a moment before nodding. That's true. After that, Remilia, Lai Yi, Patrice and Remilia trotted behind Flandrachon and grabbed her hand. Flan. Big sis, what are you doing? Flandrachon, who was about to ask more questions, turned around in dissatisfaction. Flan said she won't go back until she finds her brother. You. Remy. Patrice stepped forward and called out softly when Remilia was about to spit out another word of anger. Let me do it. Remilia took a deep breath and turned her head away with a displeased expression, silently expressing her agreement. Dear sister. Patrice squatted down and looked at Flandrachon. Can you tell me who this brother you're talking about is? Didn't Flan say it already? Perhaps because she felt she was being obstructed, Flandrachon's tone wasn't polite. Brother is brother. Even if you put it that way, we still don't understand. Patrice said patiently. You have to tell us so we can help you find your brother, right? Flandrachan's eyes lit up and she spoke excitedly. Are you all going to help me find my brother? Seeing how happy Flandrachan was, Remilia muttered in jealousy. Is that brother more important than big sister? Dear sister, you have to tell us what's so special about that brother of yours so we can help you find him, right? Patrice pondered for a moment. For example, what does your brother look like? Pie brother. Flandrachan tilted her head and thought for a moment. My brother has the same eyes as Flan. Same eyes? Remilia and Zai Yi started to recall the existences with wine-red pupils in Fantasy Village. Patrice continued to ask. What else? And. Flandrachan bit on her thumbnail. My brother has the same smell as Flan. Same smell? Remilia and Zui Yi were startled. Patrice was also startled and asked doubtfully. What does that mean? Flandrachan doesn't understand. Flandrachan said with a troubled expression. But my brother said he's the same as Flan. The same. Remilia, Bay and Patrice looked at each other in dismay. Oh, that's right. Flandrachan exclaimed as if she suddenly remembered something important. My brother said he's the true ancestor of vampires. What did you say? Patrice lost her voice. Zai Yi's expression froze and Remilia cried out in agitation. Impossible. The true ancestor of vampires shouldn't be around anymore. What? Flandrachan got angry. Big sister, do you think I'm lying? That's not it, but... That's enough, Remy. Patrice comforted the agitated Remilia and turned to Flandrachan. Dear sister, why don't you follow us back to Scarlet Devil Mansion? No way. Flandrachan said stubbornly. Flan wants to find my brother. That's why you need to follow us back to Scarlet Devil Mansion. Patrice said. Dear sister, you should know that I have a lot of books with information about the true ancestor of vampires. Let's go back and do some research to find your brother, right? Flandrachan hesitated, unsure of what to say. Will you really help me find my brother? Patrice and Dark Knight hurriedly nodded. Only Remilia turned her head away with a gloomy expression. After a while, Flandrachan nodded unwillingly. All right then. Remilia, Patrice, and Zai Yi let out a sigh of relief. Chapter 1713. In the center of the fantasy village there was a mountain. The Mountain of Monsters. This was a mountain where many ancient monsters and deities lived. On this mountain, the monsters and gods had jointly established a cultural society that was different from other humans and monsters. Their unity was very strong. When they encountered outsiders, they would reject and drive them away. And near the foot of the Mountain of Monsters, there was a lake surrounded by thick fog all day long. The Lake of Fog. This was a mysterious lake that could easily attract fairies and monsters, especially in summer. For some reason, fog would only appear during the day. Because the Lake of Fog was surrounded by fog all year round, the vision was not very good. It was easy for people to think that the Lake of Fog was very large. In fact, although the fog made the visibility of the Lake of Fog very low in terms of area, it would take less than an hour to circle the Lake of Fog. And the Red Devil Mansion was located at the edge of the Lake of Fog. When they arrived near the Lake of Fog, people could easily see that there was a vast manor house here. The Red Devil Mansion. A manor house that was comparable in size to a castle. As the Red Devil Hall was directly transferred from the outside world, the Red Devil Hall was located at the edge of the Lake of Fog. It was abnormally out of place with the nearby scenery. However, the Red Devil Mansion was indeed a very luxurious manor house. From the outside, people could first see a wall that was covered with green vines and branches. In the middle of the wall was an iron gate, and inside the gate was a vast courtyard. At the end of the courtyard was the mansion used for living. The manor house that was comparable to a castle was made of red stone bricks. There were not many windows on it. Perhaps it was because the owner of the Red Devil Mansion was a vampire and did not like the sunlight. There were many windowless rooms inside. On the roof of the manor house, there was also a huge clock tower. There was a huge dial on it. It looked luxurious and intimidating. It was a pity that the manor house was so big. At this moment, not only was the door not closed, the door of the manor in the courtyard also exploded with sawdust all over the ground. And there seemed to be no one in the manor. The silence was terrifying. At a certain moment, Ripples suddenly appeared in the space right in front of the door of this terrifyingly silent manor house. Then 3 figures emerged from it and landed on the ground. Wow! Ling Meng and Marissa only felt a blur before their eyes. Not only did their field of vision completely change, even the texture of the ground beneath their feet felt different from the wooden planks of the shrine. This caused the 2 of them to stumble and nearly fall to the ground. This place is... Marissa cried out in astonishment when she saw the scene before her. Red Devil Hall? You. Princess Ling Meng reacted and looked at Wu Yan in surprise. You actually have the same ability as Violet? You have a big misunderstanding. Wu Yan rolled his eyes. Although Amethyst's Gap can achieve the same effect, it's an ability while mine is pure magic. Magic? It's magic. Wu Yan casually replied. Space magic, the magic that can directly transfer from one space to another. That's it. That's really convenient. Princess Ling Meng exclaimed. It takes at least 10 to 20 minutes to fly from Boli Shrine to Red Devil Hall. You arrived in the blink of an eye. If I could do it too, it wouldn't be so troublesome to go out. Using space magic just to make it convenient to go out? Can you be any lazier? That's true. On the other side, Marissa agreed. If I could do it, I wouldn't have been caught borrowing books from Patrice. Using a space manipulation magic just to avoid being caught while borrowing books? Can you be any more talented? Also, that's called stealing, not borrowing. Resisting the urge to ridicule, Wu Yan turned his gaze to the front. Looking at the entrance of Red Devil Hall and the manor house in the courtyard, his face sank. Am I too late? How did Red Devil Hall become like this? Marissa seemed to have noticed something amiss as well. Where's that sleepy door? Where are the people inside? Why do they seem to have disappeared? Ling Meng also saw the wide open iron gate and the wooden splinters scattered all over the courtyard. The lazy look on her face disappeared in an instant. She turned around and looked at Wu Yan with a serious expression. You know something, right? This was a reasonable guess. After all, not long ago, Wu Yan anxiously ran to the shrine to ask Princess Ling Meng about Red Devil Hall's location and even said things like, the situation is getting out of hand. Obviously, Wu Yan knew what happened to Red Devil Hall. At the very least, he knew why Red Devil Hall was in such a state. Could it be Remilia's doing? Marissa grabbed her magus hat with one hand and her broom with the other. Not only was there no worry on her face, she was instead excited. Princess Ling Meng, it's time for us to enter the stage. However, Princess Ling Meng did not even look at Marissa and spoke to Wu Yan with a look of annoyance. What do you know? Wu Yan glanced at Ling Meng and he didn't say anything. He passed through the gate and entered the Scarlet Devil Mansion. Hey, wait. Seeing Wu Yan walk into Red Devil Hall, Marissa quickly chased after him. Even if you're Princess Ling Meng's husband, I can't let you deal with the situation. Who's my husband? Originally, Princess Ling Meng wanted to sneak away quietly, but upon hearing Marissa's words, anger appeared on her face and she chased after him. Marissa, if you continue to speak nonsense, I'll really have to treat you. That's right. Wu Yan nodded and agreed with Princess Ling Meng's words. If I become the husband of this lazy witch, won't my assets be in danger? Assets? Marissa was slightly taken aback. Assets. The laziness in Princess Ling Meng's eyes turned into light. How much assets do you have? I don't know, I didn't count them carefully. Wu Yan replied while walking into Red Devil Hall. However, even if you add up all the money in Fantasy Village, you shouldn't have as much as me, right? All right then. Princess Ling Meng said without hesitation. I'll reluctantly let you be my husband before I spend all your assets. Wu Yan's legs went soft and he almost fell to the ground. Should I feel that your moral integrity and chastity is valuable? Or is it worthless? Moreover, is the validity period limited to spending all my assets? Isn't this nonsense? Princess Ling Meng looked at Wu Yan with disdain. Without money you still want to be my husband? Wu Yan felt that it was better for him to remain silent. After passing through Red Devil Hall's courtyard, they arrived at Red Devil Hall's manor and entered the interior. A large hall that took up a lot of space was imprinted in everyone's eyes. It was a luxurious hall that seemed to be covered with a red carpet. Around the hall were corridors that led to unknown places. There was a luxurious chandelier on the ceiling and a flight of stairs at the front. At the top of the stairs was a platform with a round table and a tea set. However, there was not a single person in such a luxurious hall. In the middle of the hall there was a large pool of water. Hey! Looking at this strange scene, Marissa called out. Is there anyone here? I, Marissa, am here. Marissa's voice spread far and wide, but in return only echoes were heard. There was not even a single response. To one. Princess Ling Meng tilted her head. Don't tell me they all went out? Wu Yan took a step forward and looked at the large pool of water in the middle of the hall. His eyes flashed with a thoughtful light. There is a small amount of magic residue left in the space of this hall. Magic residue? Marissa blinked her eyes. Princess Ling Meng understood. You're saying that there was a battle here earlier? No, it shouldn't be as serious as a battle. Wu Yan waved his hand. There is only a small amount of magic residue left in the air. If it was a battle, there should be more magic residue left. Then what happened? Princess Ling Meng sighed. Really, why do I have so much trouble the moment you come? I'm sorry to trouble you. Wu Yan unhappily replied to Princess Ling Meng. All of a sudden, a voice filled with surprise and joy rang out from the entrance. Brother. Chapter 17:14. Big Brother. Following this tender and pleasant voice, Wu Yan, Ling Meng and Marissa turned around and looked towards the door. Outside the door, 4 girls of different sizes were standing there. One of them had a ponytail on the left side of her head and a pair of broken wings with crystals hanging from her back. Another was petite but had a bluish-purple shoulder-length hair and a pair of canine teeth protruded from her mouth. Another was dressed in pajamas and had a head of long purple hair. She looked like a scholar. The last one was dressed in maid attire. From her appearance, one could see that she had a capable temperament. 4 girls of various sizes are standing in front of the entrance of Scarlet Devil Mansion. The one leading the group with a ponytail is looking at Wu Yan with an expression of ecstasy. The other 3 girls on the other hand are looking at Wu Yan in a daze, a stark contrast to the one leading the group. Looking at the little girl who is looking at him with an expression of ecstasy, Wu Yan let out a sigh of relief and at the same time he also revealed a relieved smile. You really made me look for you, Flan. Flandrachon's ecstatic expression slowly turned into one of grievance as if she was being bullied. She leaped towards Wu Yan and pounced on him. Big brother. Wu Yan quickly stepped forward and caught Flandrachon in his arms. Oni-chan. Flandrachon buried her head into Wu Yan's chest and she started sucking in his scent. She said in an aggrieved manner. Flan, I finally found you. Wu Yan felt a slight pain in his heart. The two of them were separated for less than 3 hours but Flandrachon was already so attached to him. Seems like it was as Wu Yan guessed. She returned to the basement when she entered the fantasy village. Wu Yan could clearly feel Flandrachon hugging him with an unprecedented strength, as if she was afraid that he would disappear again. With this kind of performance, if it was not unexpected, then she was definitely influenced by the basement. This made Wu Yan feel a little guilty. I'm sorry, Flan. Flan. Wu Yan rubbed Flandrachon's head and he whispered into her ears. Big brother is late. Big brother is a bad guy. Flandrachon buried her head in Wu Yan's arms. Her voice was full of grievance. You said you would return to the Scarlet Devil Mansion with Flan. But he ran away alone. How is it Wu Yan who ran away alone? The system must have misplaced Wu Yan, Flandrachon and Yukari when they entered the fantasy village. However, Wu Yan didn't explain. It was true that he didn't expect Flandrachon to return to the basement in the first place. Similarly, he didn't rush over in time and could only pat Flandrachon's head apologetically. It's all Big Brother's fault. You can punish Big Brother however you want. Really? Flandrachon's pound, of course. Then I'll punish Big Brother by not leaving Flan again. Oh, you? Wu Yan pinched Flandrachon's nose. Flandrachon didn't want to let him off so easily, but she still smiled through her tears. It was only at this moment that the people around reacted. Before Ling Meng, Marissa, Patrice and Zuiyi could say anything, Remilia stood up and glared at Wu Yan with her scarlet eyes. Put Flan down. Put Flan down. Wu Yan frowned. Why? No reason. There's no why. Remilia glared at Wu Yan with a murderous glare. If I tell you to put her down, then put her down. Oh. Wu Yan sneered when he saw that Remilia wasn't going to be polite. What if I refuse? Huh. Swish, 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 swish. As soon as he finished speaking, a chaotic sound of breaking through the air echoed throughout the entire Red Devil Hall. He saw that a formation of flying knives, which seemed to be nailed to an invisible wall, was arranged neatly in rows. It happened to be a square formation of flying knives with a side length of more than 2 meters. Without any warning, it suddenly appeared in front of Wu Yan and fell on Wu Yan. Boom. Unfortunately, although the neatly arranged flying daggers seemed to have appeared out of thin air, and were extremely abrupt, a violent mana whirlwind suddenly shook and blasted out like an explosion when it was about to land on Wu Yan's body. Clang clang clang. All of a sudden, the flying daggers that formed a phalanx were all knocked away by the whirlwind formed by mana as if they had hit steel. The explosion caused Ling Meng and Marissa, who were the closest to Wu Yan, to cry out in surprise as they were pushed back, putting some distance between themselves and Wu Yan. At the entrance, Patrice gazed at Wu Yan, who was engulfed in a whirlwind of mana, and her expression turned solemn. What a powerful mana! Wu Yan gradually opened his eyes. His line of sight shot like an arrow toward a dashing female servant who stood before Remilia with a flying knife in her hand. Is this how the Red Devil Hall treats its guests? My apologies. My apologies. 16 Knights. Black Knight stood before Remilia and spoke in a neither servile nor overbearing tone. Although the Red Devil Hall is hospitable, we will never entertain someone who is rude to the Red Devil Hall's owner. I was the one who was provoked, but now I am the one who is being rude. I guess I got to see how overbearing Scarlet Devil Mansion can be. Wu Yan curled his lips and he looked at Sakuya with a look of contempt. But, in order to protect the authority of the first young miss, you actually disregarded the fact that the second young miss is in my hands and attacked me. Should I say that you are loyal? Or should I say that you are ignorant? Rest assured, Your Excellency, Black Knight said indifferently. With the second young miss's capabilities, it is impossible for her to be injured by an attack of this degree. Oh? Wu Yan's lips curled up slightly. In other words, as long as you are certain that your attack won't cause any harm, you will attack the first young miss and second young miss? Sakuya raised her head and looked straight at Wu Yan. She didn't say anything else. She probably realized that she couldn't win against Wu Yan, so she just gave up. Such a decisive attitude made Wu Yan have a whole new level of respect for Black Knight. Don't think that this girl is just an ordinary maid just because she is dressed in maid attire. If you really think so, you will die a horrible death. 16 Black Knight. Not only was this girl in charge of all the affairs in the Red Devil Hall, but she was also Remilia's most trusted and capable maid. She also had the ability to control time. Therefore, even Wu Yan didn't notice when the flying daggers appeared just now. He only noticed when they were within a certain range of him. Come to think of it, Sakuya must have used her ability to stop time before throwing her throwing knives. Only when the throwing knives got close to Wu Yan did time return to normal. With such an ability, it was not strange that Wu Yan didn't notice when the flying daggers were thrown. After all, they were thrown when time was still. How could he notice? I'll say it one more time. Remilia fixed her gaze on Wu Yan through Black Knight's back. Put Fran down. Wu Yan smiled at Remilia's words that sounded like a threat and a declaration. His smile was unusually thought-provoking. Don't treat me like you. No matter if Fran is normal or abnormal, crazy or not, destroying things or not, I won't put her down. This time Remilia's expression changed and became incomparably ugly. Wasn't Wu Yan's words poking at Remilia's sore spot? Of course, it also poked at Remilia's anger. With a flip of her hand, a scarlet spear that was taller than Remilia abruptly appeared in her hand. The tip of the spear resembled a demon's tail. Swish. Remilia brandished the scarlet spear in her hand. Her eyes turned completely blood-red and her canine teeth protruded from her lips like the sharp teeth of a wolf. She slowly floated up into the air. She looked down at Wu Yan, who is still holding Flandrachon. Her voice turned cold as she spoke to Wu Yan. I never repeat a sentence for the third time. That's unfortunate. I happen to be the type who likes to repeat myself. Wu Yan lifted his gaze and gazed at Remilia. So, no matter how many times you repeat yourself, my answer will always be the same. The conversation between the two of them caused the atmosphere of the scene to become tense and tense. Chapter 17:15. Floating in the air, Remilia looked down at the person who was hugging Fran tightly. She appeared cold, but she was furious and envious. As Fran's sister, Remilia had hugged Fran before, but Fran had never shown her attachment like she did to that man. It wasn't that Remilia didn't want Fran to be attached to her, but with Fran's unstable mental state she would only want to find someone to play with. Why would she find someone to rely on? Therefore Remilia had never been relied on or attached to by Fran. To put it bluntly, as an elder sister, Remilia had never given Fran anything that an elder sister should give. That was why Remilia was so aggressive when she saw how much Fran relied on that man. Of course, this was Remilia's personality. As long as it was someone she didn't know well, she would show her slightly aggressive side. But this time, because of Fran, this slightly aggressive side became extremely aggressive. Wu Yan seemed to have seen through Remilia's thoughts under her cold expression. His gaze landed on the bright red spear in Remilia's hand. That gun was called Gungnir. In Norse mythology, Odin used a godly spear that never missed. As long as this spear was thrown by its owner, it would definitely hit the target. It was similar to the spear of thorns that had the effect of stabbing the heart. Unfortunately, the bright red spear in Remilia's hand wasn't the real Gungnir, and Remilia didn't actually possess the Gungnir. The Gungnir in Remilia's hand was just a skill, derived from her ability. At this point, it was necessary to talk about Remilia's ability. As a member of Fantasy Village that was blessed by the gods, and as a member of Fantasy Village where basically everyone was equipped with a special ability, since Fran had such a terrifying ability as Fran's elder sister, even if Remilia couldn't compare to Fran, she wasn't too far off. Remilia's ability was the ability to control fate. As for the ability of Gungnir, it was an ability of Gungnir. It was 100% accurate. Remilia, who had the ability to control fate. She could use her own strength to use the 100% accurate fate. Through controlling fate, Remilia was able to recreate the legendary Gungnir in the form of a skill. Therefore, the Gungnir in Remilia's hands wasn't a real Gungnir, but Remilia's Gungnir wasn't a real one. However, it had almost the same ability as Gungnir. If Remilia threw the spear in her hand, if Wu Yan has no way of reversing something as non-existent as fate, he might be able to do so. He would definitely be hit. Of course, he would only be hit after Remilia took out the Gungnir. Fran, who had been silent all this while, lifted her head and glanced at Remilia. Just as she opened her mouth and was about to say something, she was interrupted by a voice beside her. "Let's stop here." Holding the coin, Soul Dream closed her eyes and moved to the middle of the floating Remilia and Wu Yan on the ground. She opened her eyes. "Do you really think I don't exist?" "Soul Dream." Remilia's cold voice carried a hint of anger. "Are you going to help him?" "I don't have the time to help anyone fight." Soul Dream glanced at Remilia. "But since you don't follow the rules of Fantasy Village, I have no choice but to stand up." Wu Yan, Remilia, and the rest of the people recalled something when they heard Ling Meng's words. Personal fights are not allowed in Fantasy Village. This was a rule set by Bunny Shrine's Bunny Spirit Dream as the manager of Fantasy Village. In the Fantasy Village, when humans, monsters, and other races fought against each other, Ling Meng had set up a rule to prevent them from using too much strength and causing damage to the Fantasy Village or causing other troubles. The rule of rune cards. The so-called rule of rune cards refers to when two parties are required to duel, they must use their abilities and skills as forms and give their abilities and skills a name. When used during the duel, they are known as rune cards. Before the battle began, both parties had to indicate the number of rune cards they used in the battle. If the opponent deciphered all the rune cards, or if one of the parties was the first to exhaust their strength, it would be considered as the loser. Even if both parties still have stamina left, if one party indicates that they have used up all their rune cards before the duel begins, then the party that uses up all their rune cards will lose. This kind of duel, other than comparing the power of the skills used by both parties, also relied on the magnificence of the moves to compete on the spiritual level. Rather than calling it a duel, it would be better to call it a game. However, this kind of game was recognized by all existences in Fantasy Village. This was because in Fantasy Village, the Bunny Shrine's Bunny Shrine's Bunny Shrine's Bunny Shrine's Bunny Shrine was absolutely invincible. If they were to fight head-on, even if Soul Dream couldn't win against Violet, Violet's Bunny Shrine's Bunny Shrine wouldn't be able to do anything to Soul Dream. However, if the rules of rune cards were used to determine victory and defeat, the invincible Bunny Shrine's Bunny Shrine would be defeated. Because of this, the rules of rune cards were recognized by all existences in Fantasy Village and no one could go against them. However, from just now, whether it was Black Knight's surprise attack, Wu Yan's counterattack, or Remilia's plan to use the Gungnir, none of them followed the rules of rune cards to duel. Thus, as the one who made the rules of rune cards, it was natural for Soul Dream to stand out at this time. It was so natural that the aggressive Remilia withered. Soul Dream. Remilia looked at Soul Dream unwillingly. Can't you make an exception for once? If you're just messing around, I don't have the time to care about you. However, looking at you, it's impossible for you to not get serious. Soul Dream pouted impatiently. Unless you can guarantee that your messing around won't affect the surroundings and won't cause any destruction. In that case, I can't be bothered. Instantly, Remilia's aura dissipated as if it had been dealt a blow. Won't affect the surroundings? Won't cause any destruction? It wasn't that Remilia couldn't do it. However, would an attack that wouldn't cause any destruction be able to achieve the goal of teaching that man a lesson? Obviously, that was impossible. It would be better for them to duel using rune cards. I'll say this first. From start to finish, I didn't intend to cause any destruction to the surroundings. Wu Yan spoke indifferently. You're the one who provoked him. Remilia looked at Wu Yan with a murderous look. You despicable bastard. Ling Meng grabbed Wu Yan's collar and for the first time, she screamed at the top of her lungs. You've already caused me a lot of trouble today. Don't cause me any more trouble, all right? I know. Wu Yan hurriedly spoke. I just want to say a few words to that lowly vampire. Is that all right? Lowly vampire. Remilia's eyebrows twitched. Her murderous aura filled the air once more. I'll definitely kill you. You want to fight? I won't accompany you today. Wu Yan sneered. His words caused Remilia to lose her composure. Today Fran will be by my side. What did you say? Remilia cried out. I said I'll take care of Fran today. Wu Yan snapped. If you want to see Fran, then come to the shrine. Hey, why is it a shrine? Wu Yan grabbed Ling Meng before she could finish her sentence. Well then, goodbye. Leaving those words behind, Wu Yan and Ling Meng melted into the space and disappeared. Hey! Black White, who had been gloating on the side, suddenly flipped out. Don't forget about me. Black White picked up her broom and flew out of the Scarlet Devil Mansion's window without looking back. Fran was taken away? Remilia stared blankly at the direction Wu Yan, Fran, and Soul Dream disappeared. She lowered her head and her delicate body trembled violently. Eldest young miss. Seeing this scene, the nearby Zui Yi cautiously asked. Why don't I go and bring the second young mistress back? Bring back that bastard's head as well. Remilia didn't care about her image and screamed. I want to suck his blood dry. Calm down, Remy. Patrice shook her head. Little sister said that person is a primogenitor. Did you forget? How can that despicable fellow be the noble true ancestor of the vampires? Remilia glared at Patrice before speaking with a gloomy expression. No, now isn't the time to think about that. What's important is to bring Fran back. Let's go. We're going to the shrine. Yes. Chapter 17-16. Fantasy Village, Boli Shrine. Because they had left in a hurry and because they had used space teleportation, the gate of the shrine that Marissa had pushed open was still open, as if someone had come in to steal something. Don't think that there aren't any thieves in Fantasy Village. A certain rat who is black and white but isn't perverted, and whether or not he has lesbian tendencies is still unknown, is this so-called thief. It was a pity that the Bori shrine didn't even have incense money. The owner of the shrine was still a living treasure who was on the verge of despair because of an empty money box. Even if there were thieves in the Fantasy Village, no thief would choose to come here. Except for Marissa. Whoosh. Gusts of cold wind blew from the bottom of the stairs at the front of Boli Shrine. It whistled across the empty space in front of the shrine and rolled into the shrine. Buzz. Not long after, there was a violent tremor in the air within the shrine. A spatial ripple appeared like a mirage, and then a man and two women emerged from the spatial ripple. Among them, the slightly older girl fell on her buttocks, causing her to cry out in pain. Her family friend. Sitting on the ground, Soul Dream rubbed her small buttocks and glared at Wu Yan. Her lungs were about to explode from anger. You broke my money box and caused me to burn my tongue. You drenched me all over and even caused me to be misunderstood by Marissa. You brought me to the Red Devil Mansion without my consent and made me clean up your mess. Now you casually brought me back and threw me on the ground. You're deliberately looking for trouble, aren't you? You. This is a big misunderstanding. Wu Yan raised his eyebrows at Soul Dream while hugging Fran. Breaking your cash box was purely an accident. I only drenched you because you scalded your tongue, but you were misunderstood by Marissa to have fallen down on your own. I brought you to Scarlet Devil Mansion because I expected Remilia to flip out. Now that I brought you back, I didn't mean to throw you on the ground. You're still denying it. Princess Ling Meng really wanted to use her imperial coins to beat this jinx to death. But after a while she was stunned. You said that you knew Remilia would flip out. Is that why you brought me there? Well, I guess you can say that. He hugged Fran tightly. Wu Yan sat down and sighed helplessly as he helped Fran tidy up her messy hair. That Remilia is a complete siscon. With that lowly vampire's temper, it's only a matter of time before she explodes because of me visiting her and acting so intimately with Fran. Siscon? Fran, who was in Wu Yan's embrace, asked innocently. What's a siscon? Sisoncon is a creature that commands respect and fear at the same time. Wu Yan pinched Fran's nose. Those who really, really like their younger sisters are siscons. He likes his sister very, very much. Elder sister? Does my sister like Fran a lot? Fran bit her thumb and said angrily. Then she's definitely not a siscon. Oh? Wu Yan asked in amusement. Why? Because my sister doesn't really like Fran a lot. Fran said unhappily. That's why she's not a siscon. Silly girl. Wu Yan didn't know whether to laugh or cry. Your sister didn't say she didn't really like you. How do you know she doesn't? If she really likes Fran a lot, she wouldn't have locked Fran in the basement. Fran threw a tantrum. That's why my sister must hate Fran a lot. You can't put it that way. Wu Yan stroked Fran's cheek and sighed. There's a saying that goes concern leads to confusion. Perhaps back then your elder sister was too concerned about you, so she lost her sense of propriety and locked you in the basement. That's not for sure. Is that so? Fran looked at Wu Yan uneasily. Then will my brother lock Fran in the basement because he really likes Fran a lot? If my brother really did lock Fran in the basement one day, I'm sure he'll stay in the basement with Fran. Wu Yan smiled gently. Will Fran still be afraid if that happens? With my brother. Fran was stunned for a moment before she smiled. Fran won't be afraid if I'm with my brother. Looking at Fran's cute smile, Wu Yan's mood lightened up. Ling Meng, on the other hand, was a bit surprised. I didn't expect you to speak up for Remilia after she provoked you. It's not a good thing. Wu Yan shrugged. I'm just telling the truth. It doesn't matter if it's the truth or nonsense. Anyway, don't give me any more trouble. Princess Ling Meng looked at Wu Yan with disgust. What was supposed to be a leisurely day has turned into a mess because of you. Today I've used up all my activities for the next 2 to 3 years. How do you expect me to find an excuse to spend the next 2 to 3 years leisurely? I don't know if you're joking or not, but if you are, I won't complain. Wu Yan's mouth twitched. You've used up all your activities for the next 2 to 3 years in one day. You've been very inactive for the past 2 to 3 years. How many days do you plan to be active for? None of your business. Princess Ling Meng snorted and turned to look at Fran, who was rubbing her eyes sleepily. Is it okay for you to bring her out? Princess Ling Meng knew that Fran's mental state had always been unstable. Even if Princess Ling Meng didn't reject Fran, she was still worried that Fran would cause trouble. She really didn't want to do so many troublesome things. Don't worry about that. Wu Yan lowered his voice when he saw Fran's eyelids starting to close. He adjusted Fran in his arms and gently patted her back as if he was coaxing her to sleep. Fran's illness has been cured. She won't have any problems in the future. Is that so? Fran bit her finger and fell into a deep sleep. Ling Meng glared at Wu Yan when she saw Fran biting her finger. Then why did you bring her to the shrine and have Remilia come here to take her away? What's going on? Can't help it. This girl isn't in a state where she can be ignored. Wu Yan smiled bitterly. I'll let her stay by my side for now. I'll bring her back to the Scarlet Devil Mansion when she's emotionally stable. I have some things I need to tell Remilia. Seriously, this is your first day in Fantasy Village. Why do you always cause trouble? Princess Ling Meng looked at Wu Yan as if he was a troublemaker. She couldn't stop complaining. Marissa is already a headache. Now there's another one. Mama, don't make it sound so bad. Wu Yan chuckled. After all, we still have to spend some time together. Princess Lingming's eyelids twitched. He had a bad feeling. What do you mean by that? It's simple. Wu Yan looked straight at Princess Lingming. I want to stay the night. Stay the night? Princess Lingming was stunned. Her face was filled with disbelief. You can't be thinking of, that's right. Wu Yan nodded. I want to stay in the shrine for the time being. No way. Ling Meng did not even want to think about it and firmly rejected. Don't even think about it. Hey, aren't you a witch? Wu Yan was speechless. It's fine if you don't care about an outsider who doesn't have a place to stay. But it shouldn't be hard for you to give her a place to sleep, right? I don't want to let a super troublemaker stay in the shrine. I won't be able to live a peaceful life if that happens. Princess Lingmeng made a decision. No matter what, there's no room for discussion. Oh. Wu Yan chuckled. It's an eerie laugh. Don't speak so soon. Wu Yan took out a pouch and threw it on the table. Clang. Following this sound, the bag slammed heavily onto the table in front of Ling Meng. The opening of the bag opened up, exposing the contents of the bag to the air. In the next moment, Ling Meng's vision was filled with golden light, causing her incorruptible expression to freeze on her face. There was no other reason. This was because the bag was filled to the brim with gold coins. Chapter 17:17. There were at least 30 gold coins in the old pouch. They were emitting a rich and dazzling light that seemed to illuminate the entire shrine. Princess Lingmeng's eyes were glued to them, unable to move away. If Princess Lingmeng's eyes turned into 2 yen signs, it would be an interesting scene. Gold coins. Princess Lingmeng struggled to speak as she looked at the bag of gold coins on the table. These gold coins should be enough to sustain the shrine for half a year, right? And these gold coins are enough to sustain the shrine for half a year. Now you just need to say the word and they'll all be yours. Wu Yan reminded Princess Lingmeng. How about it? Can you promise me to live in the shrine? Ugh. Princess Lingmeng stared at the bag of gold coins on the table. Her eyes were filled with hesitation. She was struggling to make a choice between gold coins and leisure. As a greedy person, Princess Lingmeng was also an extremely lazy person. Now that money and leisure were placed on the table, and Lingmeng had to choose between the two. Wouldn't that be a very difficult choice? Of course, since ancient times. From the perspective of the Bori Shrine, which in the land of fantasy, Soul Dream was probably the only one who would have to make such a difficult choice between the two. But, Princess Lingmeng, who couldn't make a choice, could only say that sentence with a dry mouth. Aren't you the head of the House of the Lost? Isn't it better to live in the House of the Lost? Unfortunately, I don't know where the House of the Lost is. Princess Lingmeng, who claimed to be the head of the House of the Lost, was implying that she didn't know the way home. So, I can only choose to live in the shrine. Princess Lingmeng's eyes were filled with hesitation. She kept muttering to herself. What should I do? Choose gold coins? But if I let this troublemaker live here, I won't be able to live a peaceful life. Choose to refuse? Then I'll have to take the risk of offending Yukari and fight with this troublesome person. That seems to be very troublesome. Hearing Ling Meng's mumbling, Wu Yan's mouth twitched. Feelings. If this girl chose to refuse, he would even fight with him for the sake of gold coins. Wasn't that daylight robbery? As expected, someone who could mix with Marissa, who was good at borrowing things, also had the potential to become a great thief. They were bandits. After a series of difficult choices, Princess Ling Meng suddenly exhaled. He tapped his palm as if he had suddenly realized something. I think it's more reliable for you to be my husband. This way I can accept your gold coins. I can even chase you out. Wu Yan's hand trembled and he almost threw Fran, who was sleeping in his arms, out. His face twisted. I don't mind you selling your chastity for gold coins, but you let someone else be your husband and you want to kick him out? Because it's too troublesome to have another husband. Princess Ling Meng said righteously. Anyway, there are many couples living separately in the human world. We just need to imitate them. Imitate your sister. Wu Yan couldn't help but want to slap the table. Just let me live here. Will it kill you to have some integrity? Integrity? Princess Ling Meng said with disdain. That kind of thing is too troublesome. I understand now. Your laziness is no longer a disease but a realm. In order to not destroy his worldview, Wu Yan decisively chose to force her to abdicate. Now you only have two choices. You can choose the gold coins and I'll live there, or you can choose to refuse. I can also go to the human realm. I believe that no one will refuse to provide a place for me to find a rich man. Ugh. Princess Ling Meng's delicate body trembled and trembled again. You actually use money to force a girl to do something she doesn't want to do. How shameful. I just want to live in the shrine. I don't want to push you down. Wu Yan said weakly. Are you willing or not? Can't you just say it? Fine. Princess Ling Meng's face was resolute. Now that things have come to this, I can only... You want to rob me? Wu Yan said coldly. Then I'll kindly remind you that I won't feel bad even if I throw these gold coins into the gutter. If you want to take them for free, I don't mind giving them to you. But if you do, you'll offend a rich man like me. You won't have many chances to get rich in the future. Princess Ling Meng, who had just decided to choose between gold coins and leisure, was petrified on the spot. You really want to rob me? Seeing Princess Ling Meng frozen on the spot, Wu Yan's face was full of conflict. Then he revealed a ruthless expression. Are you going to let me live here or not? If you don't, I'll go to the human world. The human world. Princess Ling Meng seemed to have just woken up. She waved her hand at Wu Yan in a daze. Go, just leave the gold coins behind. I beg you, can you give me a definite answer? Wu Yan forced a smile. If this goes on, I'm afraid I won't be able to resist burying you. Sigh. Princess Ling Meng seemed to have accepted her fate. Why do I have to get into trouble with you? Although she said that, Ling Meng seemed to have made a decision in her heart. With lightning speed, her hand turned into an afterimage as it flashed across the table in front of her. When the afterimage disappeared, the money pouch on the table had also disappeared. There's no place for you in the shrine. Princess Ling Meng gave a ruthless answer after taking the money. If you want to stay here, then go to the warehouse and move your old stuff. You can sleep on the floor. Listen carefully. Princess Ling Meng stood up and leaned forward. She put her face in front of Wu Yan with a serious expression. Don't cause any more trouble for me. If you do, I'll treat you like a monster and treat you. Well, don't worry. Wu Yan said straightforwardly. I won't cause any trouble. At least I won't take the initiative to cause trouble. It's just that. Wu Yan turned to look at the entrance of the shrine and shrugged. If trouble comes knocking on my door, then I can't do anything about it. Princess Ling Meng couldn't help but be startled. She followed Wu Yan's gaze and looked at the entrance. Then the corners of her eyes began to twitch. There were two figures standing at the entrance of the shrine. One was a silver-haired girl holding a parasol and wearing a maid's outfit. The other was a petite girl wearing a gothic lowly outfit and standing under the parasol. Her face was filled with anger. Of course, they were Remilia and Ziyi. As for Patrice, because of Fran, she didn't get to exercise for a long time. Now she's lying in the Scarlet Devil Mansion, unable to walk anymore. Finally, I found you. Remilia's anger was reflected in her eyes, her voice, and her expression. When she saw Flan sucking on her finger and sleeping soundly in Wu Yan's arms, her anger only got stronger. You actually dared to kidnap my sister. You've got guts. Don't blame me for reminding you. Wu Yan didn't even look at Remilia. He picked up a cup of tea from the table and casually took a sip. Firstly, Fran willingly followed me. I didn't kidnap her. Secondly, Fran is also my sister. Even if I took her away, you have no right to say anything. Remilia widened her eyes. Then a strong killing intent burst out from her eyes. You said I have no right to say anything? What? Do you have a problem with that? Wu Yan calmly looked at Remilia with a cold smile. To me, you who didn't give Fran a good life indeed have no right to say anything to me. Remilia's delicate body trembled violently, and the killing intent in her eyes dissipated. Her pretty face seemed to have lost all color, becoming a little pale. Let me give you a piece of advice, don't go overboard with your words. Seeing Remilia's pale face, Sakuya showed a trace of worry. She looked at Wu Yan with a cold tone. To us, you who popped out of nowhere also have no right to say anything to the Scarlet Devil Mansion's master. To me, the Scarlet Devil Mansion's master is nothing. Wu Yan looked at Remilia with a forceful gaze. The only reason I can interact with you is because you're Fran's sister in name. Chapter 17-18. The only reason I can interact with you is because you're still Fran's sister in name. Following the spread of these words, the atmosphere of the entire place changed from the initial aggressive to heavy. That in-name statement was like a sharp arrow that pierced deeply into Remilia's heart, causing her pretty face to turn pale once again. It also stabbed Zhou Xian's weak spot, causing him to be furious and speechless. Xian. Although it was said ruthlessly, everyone present except for Ling Meng, Remilia and Zai Yi understood that this nominal statement was, to put it bluntly, true. Remilia doted on her sister very much, and Fran was indeed Remilia's biological sister. No matter what, it couldn't be considered as just in name. However, just as Wu Yan said before, Remilia didn't give Fran a good day at all. She even gave Fran a very traumatic life. But that couldn't be considered Remilia's fault. The main problem was still Fran's problem. For a person who could go crazy at any time and want to kill everyone around her, even if that person was the person closest to her and the person she loved the most, who could think of a way to solve the problem without hurting her. If this person could be easily suppressed, then it wasn't impossible. The key was, to a certain extent, this person had an existence that surpassed everyone around her. And Fran was such an existence. Her mental state was abnormal and she was extremely dangerous. She also had enormous power that no one could suppress. Other than locking Fran in the basement, was there any other way? Of course there was a way. After all, the thing that Fantasy Village didn't lack the most was those strange things. This was something that could be called a miracle. Unfortunately, Remilia couldn't be considered a native of Fantasy Village. In fact, when she first came to Fantasy Village, Remilia had the idea of ruling the entire Fantasy Village, becoming enemies with all the monsters in Fantasy Village. And at that time, Fran was already in a mentally unstable state. Remilia. She could only choose the stupidest but most efficient way to isolate Fran, who was like a bomb. As a result, when facing Remilia was definitely not on the side of reason. You're an outsider, you don't understand Miss at all. Zhou Yi said coldly as if he was standing up for Remilia. Miss cares more about second Miss than anyone else. That's something an outsider like you can't understand at all. You still want to be stubborn? Don't you understand that you're in the wrong from the beginning? Wu Yan responded to Zhou Yi's words with a somewhat pitiful look. Indeed, I might really not understand Miss because I'm an outsider. Then, as Fran's closest people, let me ask you, do you understand Fran? Remilia and Zhou Yi were stunned at the same time. Understand Fran? Perhaps this was something that Remilia and Zhai Yi had not considered until now? The reason was very simple. It was because Fran's mental state was very unstable and crazy. Why would anyone want to understand a crazy person? Perhaps Remilia and Zhou Yi were more concerned about how to solve Fran's problem than how to understand Fran, right? That was why Remilia and Zhou Yi were stunned and didn't react for a long time. You only know that Fran's mental state is unstable and she often causes trouble and it's very serious. But please use your noble brain to think, why would Fran cause trouble? Why would she want someone to play with her? Wu Yan looked straight at Remilia. Isn't it because Fran doesn't want to be alone at all? But what can we do? Remilia opened her mouth, unwilling to give up. Given Fran's mental state, even if someone plays with her, she doesn't know how to control herself. In the end, Fran will destroy everything by her side, whether it's a person or an object. Then let me ask you. Wu Yan's eyes carried a calmness that made Remilia's heart palpitate. Did Fran ever hit you hard when she was making trouble for you? Attacked. Remilia was slightly taken aback. It was only at this moment that Remilia realized that no matter how crazy Fran was in the past, no matter how unstable her mental state was, she would ignore her elder sister's words once she got into a fight. However, she had never been so crazy as to attack her. Great Master of the Scarlet Fiend Dojo, you should have taken it for granted that Fran never attacked you, right? Wu Yan's voice turned into a sharp needle that pierced Remilia's heart. It is indeed a matter of course, because no matter how crazy Fran is, she still remembers that you are her sister and that she can't attack you. Remilia was at a loss. You think that you had no choice but to lock Fran in the basement and that it was for her own good, but you never tried to understand Fran. Wu Yan seemed to have lost interest in Remilia and looked away. Of course, it never occurred to you that Fran, who had been shouting, "Come and play," was doing so because she was too lonely. You never considered the ways that could make Fran happy either. If you tried to understand Fran and figure out her thoughts, You would have thought of this. Wu Yan sighed. Since Fran has been causing trouble because no one is playing with her and Fran likes you from the bottom of her heart, she won't attack you no matter how crazy she is. Then as long as you take some time out of your day to accompany Fran in the basement, won't the problem be solved? This sentence was like a thunderbolt that hit Remilia hard. Remilia's expression changed drastically and she was stunned. As long as you take some time out of your day to accompany Fran, Fran won't feel lonely. If she doesn't feel lonely, she won't look for someone to play with her. If she doesn't need someone to play with her, Fran won't cause trouble. Wu Yan glanced at Remilia. However, you kept saying that you were doing it for Fran's own good, but you locked her in the basement and left her sister, who was not even as smart as a 10-year-old child, all alone in the basement. She was getting crazier and crazier. Isn't it because you've never considered things from Fran's point of view and never tried to understand Fran's proof? Remilia's mouth opened and closed as if she wanted to defend herself, but she couldn't find the words to say. She could only stare blankly at Fran, who was sleeping peacefully in Wu Yan's arms. She couldn't say a complete sentence. Miss. Looking at Remilia's expression, Ruiyi worriedly called out, but Remilia didn't respond. Hey. Beside them, Princess Lingmeng couldn't stand it anymore and frowned. Don't you think you're going overboard? I'm just stating the facts. Wu Yan shifted his gaze from Remilia to Princess Lingmeng. I'm not denying that Remilia really cares about Fran, but it's a fact that she didn't try to help Fran. It's also a fact that Fran has been causing trouble and has a dark life. Wu Yan ignored Lingmeng. He closed his eyes and softly muttered this sentence. Fran's past is dark and painful. That's why Fran has the right to be happy in the future. If you can't give Fran happiness, then I advise you to give up on her. Give up on Fran. These simple words caused Remilia to raise her head abruptly. I will never give up on Fran. When she said that, all the emotions in her heart turned into determination. Because this was the only thing Remilia would never give in to. Even if Remilia gave Fran a painful life, she was still Fran's elder sister. That's not something you can decide. Wu Yan snorted and stood up to look at Remilia. Tomorrow I will bring Fran to the Scarlet Devil Mansion. At that time, let me see if you have the right to keep Fran by your side. After saying that, Wu Yan walked past Remilia and walked out of the shrine. Remilia didn't move from the start to the end, but her back revealed a sense of desolation. Princess Lingmeng and Ruiyi could only watch this scene silently for a long time. Chapter 17-19. Fantasy Village, Scarlet Devil Mansion. Sitting by the round table at the end of the staircase, Patrice wore a pair of spectacles and held a book in her hand. She looked like a scholar who was improving her knowledge and possessed a tranquil feeling that made others unable to speak their mind. Beside Patrice, an imp held a tray and observed her master with a trace of helplessness on her face. Even though the imp was a demon, she wasn't considered powerful among demons. Therefore, the imp became Patrice's familiar. It wasn't impossible for ordinary demons to become the familiar of witches and magicians. However, if witches and magicians wanted powerful demons to become their familiar, they would have to pay a price. After all, wasn't it the demons who became their familiar? However, the imp's strength was considered weak among demons. Therefore, even if she became someone else's familiar, she didn't have the qualifications to ask her master to pay a price. Therefore, the imp became Patrice's familiar out of her own free will. It was also because the imp was willing to become Patrice's familiar and respected her master from the bottom of her heart. Therefore, the imp noticed a detail that others couldn't. Even though Patrice seemed to be engrossed in her studies, Kieran could not help but sigh. But now, Patrice definitely didn't read a single word in the book. Speaking of which, Patrice, who had always stayed in the Scarlet Devil Mansion's underground library, was reading in the main hall. This proved that her true purpose wasn't to read. Moreover, ever since Remilia and San Yi left the Scarlet Devil Mansion and went to the Bo Li Shrine, Patrice hadn't even flipped a single page of the book. Clearly, Patrice wasn't seriously reading the book. Come to think of it, he must be very worried about Second Miss, right? Thinking until here, the imp couldn't help but turn her gaze towards the entrance of the Scarlet Devil Mansion. When she looked, the imp was taken aback. Then she hurriedly called out, "Madame Patrice." Patrice seemed to have heard the commotion at the entrance before the imp called out. She lifted her head and looked towards the entrance. When Remilia and Night Eye walked through the door, Patrice saw the images of Remilia and Nightai. Patrice's heart sank slightly. He saw, walking into the Red Devil Hall, Sui Yi, who followed behind Remilia step by step, had a look on his face. Not only was there a trace of worry, but there was also a heavy feeling. As for Remilia, her head was completely lowered, making it impossible to see her expression. However, this only showed that something had happened. At least, ever since Patrice met Remilia, she had seen Remilia's dignified side, childish side, willful side, and even angry side. However, she had never seen Remilia in such a preoccupied state. Patrice's expression turned heavy. She stood up and gazed at Sui Yi, who was slowly ascending the stairs behind Remilia, and questioned him silently. Noticing Patrice's gaze, Sui Yi looked at Patrice and the worry on his face seemed to have deepened. He shook his head at Patrice. What Sui Yi wanted to express was not that he did not know, but that it was not easy to say. This made Patrice feel the importance of this matter. Not only did Sui Yi return with a heavy heart, he didn't even bring back Fran, who he wanted to bring back. This was enough to show the severity of the matter. What's wrong? In the end, Patrice chose to ask Remilia. What happened? Remilia didn't answer Patrice's question. Instead, she sat at the head of the table and lifted her head, revealing a helpless expression that Patrice had never seen before. Patrice. Remilia asked in a daze. Tell me, did I do something wrong? Looking at Remilia, who had never displayed such a weak side, Patrice more or less sensed that something was amiss. She asked in a probing tone. Are you referring to little sister's matter? He said that I never tried to understand Fran and never gave her happiness. Remilia's expression became more and more confused and helpless. In the end, she even showed a trace of depression. Also, he wanted me to give up on Fran. Hearing till here, Patrice gradually connected the dots and understood the gist of the matter. Remilia had always felt guilty about what happened to Fran. Even though she didn't think that she was the one who caused Fran to become insane, she still hated the fact that she was the one who locked Fran up in the basement. Therefore, Patrice guessed that the person who took Fran away must have exposed Remilia's guilt towards Fran. Otherwise, Patrice found it hard to imagine that Remilia would show such a weak side to anyone other than Fran, the little sister she cared about the most. One must know that when she was defeated in the battle to conquer Fantasy Village, Remilia didn't show such a weak side even when she didn't realize her dream of becoming the ruler of Fantasy Village. I don't know what that person said to you. After deliberating over her words, Patrice spoke indifferently. But Remilia, no matter what you did, your concern for Fran is something no one can deny. I am certain of this. Remilia's expression didn't turn for the better and she even bitterly smiled. That man also said he didn't deny my concern for Fran, but he felt that I couldn't give her happiness. Did that person say that? Patrice knitted her brows as though she was surprised that Wu Yan would say something like that. Her expression tensed up. That's true, but in the past there was no other way. My dear sister was mentally unstable, but it's different now. Different. Remilia's spirit jolted as though she had found a life-saving straw. She stood up from her chair and placed her hand on the table as she leaned towards Patrice. How is it different? I think you're confused because of your concern, Remilia. Patrice shook her head with a smile. Before, little sister was in that state and you couldn't give her happiness. But now little sister seems to have returned to normal, right? Remilia stared blankly for a moment before her scarlet eyes lit up. That's right. Just because I couldn't give Fran happiness in the past doesn't mean I can't in the future, right? Now that Fran had returned to normal, he didn't need to worry about Fran losing control anymore. He could live with Fran without any worries. Then couldn't he just give Fran the happiness that he couldn't give her in the past? Like a blow to the head, Remilia's heart that had been immersed in guilt towards Fran all this time suddenly brightened up. The haze that had been shrouding her heart was also swept away. Phew. Remilia let out a long sigh and her expression returned to her usual confident and arrogant self. Her voice also carried a hint of pressure. Thank you, Patrice. Lady Patrice. Yi seemed to be very happy that Remilia had returned to her original state and looked at Patrice gratefully. It seems like all of you are fine. Patrice felt relieved and asked. Then what about little sister? At the shrine. Remilia's tone became displeased at this point. She should be with that fellow right now. What? Patrice said in astonishment. You all couldn't take little sister back from him? No. Well, Remilia replied unhappily. Moreover, if we really fought back then, I wouldn't have a say in Fran's matter anymore. Patrice revealed a puzzled expression and turned to look at Cui Yi. That. Cui Yi smiled helplessly. He said that he will bring Second Miss to Scarlet Devil Mansion tomorrow and decide if he wants to return Second Mississippi. I see. Patrice nodded. Understood, I will be there tomorrow as well. Cui Yi let out a sigh of relief. With the knowledgeable Patrice, he would have the confidence to negotiate with the other party tomorrow. After all, Zhang Yi had personally experienced the extent of the other party's eloquence. Chapter 1720. The next morning. In his dreams, Wu Yan felt something furry poking his nose. It tickled the bridge of his nose and he couldn't resist the urge to sneeze. In a daze, Wu Yan wrinkled his nose. He even reached out to touch his nose until the furry thing that stuck in his nose seems to be gone. Only then did he go back to sleep. However, when Wu Yan was about to fall asleep again, the furry object poked his nose again, making Wu Yan frown. Sensing that something isn't right, he slowly regained consciousness and opened his sleepy eyes. Hee, big brother is awake. Hearing this tender voice, the last bit of his drowsiness dissipated and his mind cleared up completely. He lowered his head and looked at his chest. Over there, a young girl wearing a gothic lowly outfit with a pair of broken wings full of crystals on her back is looking at Wu Yan with a pair of bright red eyes. She has a mischievous expression on her face as if her prank was discovered. In the little girl's hand was a ponytail tied to the left side of her head. She was sweeping it in front of Wu Yan's nose. Needless to say, the furry object that woke Wu Yan up was the end of this ponytail. The one who pranked Wu Yan with her own hair. It was Fran. Girl. Wu Yan sat up and hugged Fran. He acted like he wanted to eat her alive as he yelled at her. Do you know the punishment for disturbing Big Brother's sleep? Well, Big Brother is angry. Fran immediately cooperated with him and pretended to be pitiful and trembling. Fran knows she was wrong. Big Brother, please forgive Fran. It's not sincere to apologize verbally. Wu Yan said calmly. What do you have to do if you want to be forgiven when you prank someone? What do I have to do? The pitiful and scared expression on Fran's face disappeared. This time she was really curious. What do you have to do? Do you even need to ask? Wu Yan smiled maliciously. Of course, you have to hand over the tool for pranking. Hand over the tool for pranking. Fran blinked. She immediately understood Wu Yan's meaning. She held her ponytail tightly with both hands and asked weakly. Could it be? Ahaha. Wu Yan groped around his back, and when he raised his hand again, there's a pair of scissors shining with cold light in his hand. Let me cut off Fran's hair for pranking. What? No. Fran jumped up from Wu Yan's body. Wu Yan screamed. He also jumped up. He chased after her. Immediately, messy footsteps could be heard on the wooden floor. Fran's panicked screams and bell-like laughter could be heard as well. This morning was filled with warmth. In the early morning, every corner of the Boli shrine was filled with cold air. Even if the warm sunlight shone down from the sky and filled every corner of the Boli shrine, it couldn't completely drive away the cold wind. Fran was holding her ponytail with one hand and Wu Yan's clothes tightly with the other hand. Wu Yan yawned as he walked to the shrine and opened the door. Kubai, are you there? Wu Yan was met with an indescribable silence. Within the not-so-spacious shrine, Ling Meng, who hadn't even changed her clothes, was lying on a quilt. Half of her head, which was tied up in a bow, was exposed, while the rest of her delicate body was hidden under the quilt. She looked just like a large butterfly stuck to the quilt, an exceptionally comical sight. When the door to the shrine was pushed open, Ling Meng's face was exposed. When the light from the outside shone on her face, she immediately retracted her head into the quilt like a tortoise. She looked just like a vampire that had been exposed to the light. Aren't we the vampires? Wu Yan ridiculed her. Flan looked at him with curiosity and amusement as he walked into the shrine. He slammed the table in front of him. Kobai. The sun is shining on your butt. So noisy. A half-dead voice came out from the quilt. Call me when the sun is shining on your feet. Wu Yan was silent for a moment. He slammed the table again. The sun is shining on your feet. What? The sun is only shining on your feet. The half-dead voice came from the quilt again. Call me when the sun is shining on your butt. I thought I was the laziest in the morning. I didn't expect you to be even lazier than me. Wu Yan almost choked to death. Get up. What about breakfast? Breakfast? The bowknot under the quilt shook like a pair of ears. Ling Meng poked her head out of the quilt and asked in confusion. What's breakfast? Don't we eat lunch directly after waking up? Wu Yan was embarrassed. Even Fran looked at Ling Meng as if she was an alien. What does this mean? Isn't this saying that Ling Meng usually wakes up in the afternoon? Wu Yan likes to sleep in, but he's never slept until noon. In a way, Akagaku's laziness is a realm of its own. Forget it. Wu Yan gave up. Tell me where the kitchen is. I'll go make something to eat first. Hoo, so delicious. Ling Meng, who had been lying on the bed, sat up from her original position. Her half-dead appearance had completely disappeared and was replaced by a look of vigor and vitality. Of course, vigor refers to Ling Meng waving her chopsticks energetically. The dishes on the table in front of her were reduced at a speed visible to the naked eye. Why didn't I realize that breakfast is so delicious before? Wu Yan and Fran sat opposite Ling Meng with bowls in their hands. They looked at each other as Ling Meng looked like a hungry ghost who had just been reincarnated. Does Ling Meng not have any food to eat? Fran bit the tip of her chopsticks as she looked at Ling Meng, who kept eating. Her eyes were filled with sympathy. So pitiful. Well, she used to eat lunch the moment she woke up. She has never tasted breakfast before. It's inevitable that she would be like this. Wu Yan said. So let's be considerate of her. Got it, brother. After choosing to ignore Ling Meng, Wu Yan and Fran began to eat their breakfast in silence. By the way, Wu Yan and Fran secretly hid the dishes after seeing how fast Ling Meng ate. They didn't want Ling Meng to clean up all the dishes on the table. Therefore, if someone were to come here, they would see the Miko of Bori Shrine eating and drinking without any care for her image. The other two Miko sat opposite each other, took out a few dishes hidden in the stove, put them on the ground and started eating. Not long after, whether it was the plates on the table or on the floor, all of them were cleared. Oh. Ling Meng lay down on the floor and narrowed her eyes in satisfaction. I haven't eaten so much in a long time. I can see that. Wu Yan put away the dishes and handed them to Fran, who was happily cleaning up. He then glanced at Ling Meng. Looking at the way you eat, we are almost full. Don't tell me you are so poor that you don't have money to eat? Don't have money to eat? Princess Ling Meng asked curiously. Do I need money to eat? Huh. Wu Yan was shocked. If you don't need money to eat, where did the ingredients come from? Who knows? Ling Meng pouted. Every time the inventory runs out, the ingredients will appear out of nowhere. Appear out of nowhere. Wu Yan was stunned for a moment before he understood. It must be a 17-year-old girl who was used to peeping through the gaps. When she saw that Ling Meng did not even have money for incense, she naturally did not have money to eat. In order to keep the life of the manager of Fantasy Town alive, she must have secretly brought the ingredients over. Wu Yan did not know whether to laugh or cry as he shook his head. He put all the cutlery aside and reached out to Fran. Fran, come here. What is it? Fran asked, but she was already in Wu Yan's arms. Are you going out? Yes. Where are you going? Scarlet Devil Mansion. Chapter 1721. Fantasy Village, Red Devil Mansion. In the early morning, the fog around the fog lake at the foot of the Demon Mountain seemed to have thickened. The Red Devil Mansion, which was right next to the fog lake, was shrouded in a layer of white fog. It looked somewhat illusory. The cold wind howled in the space, taking away the fog that filled the surroundings. It also brought back the new fog from the lake of fog, causing the surroundings of the Red Devil Hall to be hazy. Coupled with the fact that the Red Devil Hall did not fit in with its surroundings, people could not help but think of it as a mirage. Buzz. At a certain moment in front of the Red Devil Mansion, a space near the fog lake quietly distorted. The air vibrated, dispersing all the fog in the surroundings. Like boiling water, it was neither intense nor slow, gradually forming circles of ripples. In the spatial ripples that others could not see, two figures, one big and one small, appeared out of thin air and appeared in this space. An extremely soft sound of landing was like a thin needle falling in the silent world. Although the sound was extremely soft, it echoed clearly in the surroundings. Holding Fran, Wu Yan raised his head and looked at the somewhat illusory huge building in front of him. He sighed in his heart. It's called the Red Devil Mansion, but it looks like it's more like a ghost's castle than a devil's mansion. There was nothing he could do about it. Under the fog of the fog lake, the Red Devil Mansion, which already had an evil atmosphere, became completely gloomy. He couldn't help but worry that if he walked in when the fog dissipated, he would also disappear from the world along with the building. It was not an exaggeration to say that the Red Devil Mansion was a haunted house. On the other side, Fran, who was hugging Wu Yan's neck, looked a little unhappy. Do we really have to go back to the Red Devil Mansion? Fran did not reject the Red Devil Mansion as much as she did her basement. However, it was not easy for her to be with Wu Yan. Fran thought that she could play around in the fantasy village with Wu Yan. Who knew? After only a day, Wu Yan was going to send her back. How could Fran not be unhappy? If it wasn't for Wu Yan's repeated assurances, if Remilia still insisted on locking Fran in the basement, he would definitely take her away. Fran did not want to go back to the Red Devil Mansion. He clearly understood Fran's feelings. Wu Yan said softly. No matter what, the Red Devil Mansion is Fran's home. Fran can't always follow brother everywhere. You don't want to go home? What does it matter? Fran's face was puzzled. Even if you don't go home, Fran. Hearing these extremely willful words, Wu Yan was helpless. If you say that, your sister will be very hurt. That's better. Fran puffed up her cheeks. Big sister is so bad. Bad children should be punished, right? You. Wu Yan shook his head. Do you really? Fran doesn't want Flan? Fran was speechless. Even though you say you don't want to go home, Fran actually wants to live with her sister, right? Wu Yan rubbed Fran's head. So don't say such willful words. Oh. Flan's expression turned gloomy again. Wu Yan couldn't help but laugh at her antics. Hugging the petite figure in his arms, he started walking towards the entrance of Scarlet Devil Mansion. As they got farther and farther away from the fog lake, the Red Devil Mansion in the fog became clearer. After the visibility increased slightly, the Red Devil Mansion's entrance appeared in front of Wu Yan and Fran's eyes. Passing through the thinning fog, Wu Yan carried Fran to the entrance of the Red Devil Mansion and looked ahead. When they arrived, everything in Wu Yan's field of vision was filled with the Red Devil Mansion's buildings. Red buildings, walls covered with vines, a tall bell tower, very few windows, and an iron gate that stood in front of him, its surface flashing with a cold luster. Yesterday the Red Devil Hall was in a mess. Today it finally had its original appearance. Mysterious, strange, heavy. The castle-like building was exuding such an atmosphere at this moment. Without lamenting for too long, Wu Yan reached out to push the door in front of him. Stop. However, just as Wu Yan was about to touch the door of the Red Devil Mansion, a delicate shout rang out from inside the Red Devil Mansion. Immediately after, a figure jumped out from the wall of the Red Devil Mansion and exposed itself to the pouring sunlight. It somersaulted in the air and fell heavily. And below the place where the figure fell, Wu Yan was standing there with Fran in his arms. If he didn't dodge, then without a doubt he would have an intimate contact with the figure falling from above. Immediately Wu Yan took a few steps back. Bang! Wu Yan, who was retreating, fell heavily on the ground with a muffled sound and arrived in front of Wu Yan. It was a tall girl with waist-length red hair with 2 braids on each side. She wore a dark green Chinese suit and a hat of the same color as her clothes. On the hat was a golden star with the word, dragon, engraved on it. She was dressed like a warrior. Hong Meiling, level 75. This is the Red Devil Mansion. The girl named Hong Meiling took a stance and looked in front of her with a serious expression. Outsiders are not allowed to enter. As soon as she finished speaking, Hong Meiling was stunned. Looking at Fran in Wu Yan's arms, a look of surprise appeared on her face. Second Miss Meiling. Fran happily raised her little hand. Meiling, I'm back. Second Miss. Hong Meiling immediately jumped in front of Wu Yan with tears streaming down her face. She grabbed Fran's hand and shook it up and down. You're finally back. Seeing Hong Meiling and Fran holding hands, one with tears streaming down her face and the other with smiles on her face, Wu Yan smiled faintly. This young girl named Hong Meiling, who was dressed like a Chinese female martial artist, was in charge of guarding the door of the Red Devil Mansion. It could be said that she was the person with the lowest status in the Red Devil Mansion. She might not even be comparable to an ordinary fairy maid. Although her status was lower, Hong Meiling was still a rather important existence in the Red Devil Mansion. After all, excluding Remilia, Patrice and Black Knight, Hong Meiling was the strongest existence in the Red Devil Mansion. Her level was also only below the 3 people in front of her. It was because of this existence that Remilia made her the gatekeeper of the Red Devil Mansion and put her in charge of the mansion's first line of defense. However, this line of defense was usually a little lazy, causing a certain black and white bandit to frequently sneak into the mansion and steal books from Patrice's library. It was this gatekeeper who had the best relationship with Fran in the entire Red Devil Mansion. Hong Meiling was the only one in the entire mansion who didn't fear Fran's strength and dared to secretly play with her. Therefore, no matter how depressed Fran was, she couldn't help but say, "I'm back," when she saw Hong Meiling. The moment Hong Meiling saw Fran, she wasn't worried that Fran would lose control of herself at all. Instead, she excitedly walked up to her. "Woo!" Hong Meiling suddenly burst into tears, scaring Wu Yan and Fran. "Meiling." Fran quickly reached out and touched Hong Meiling's head. "What's wrong?" "Second miss, why did you suddenly run away yesterday?" Hong Meiling complained with tears in her eyes. "Miss Kuyi has been blaming me for not keeping an eye on you and docking my salary for the next 10 years. Whoosh. Just as Hong Meiling's complaining voice fell, a cold light flashed out from inside the door and fiercely stabbed into the center of Hong Meiling's hat, giving everyone a fright once again. "That's because you didn't do your job." Along with such a voice, a tall figure suddenly appeared at the door without the slightest warning. "China, you dare to snitch to second miss?" Miss Lu Yi." Looking at the figure that appeared at the door, Hong Meiling revealed a timid expression, but she still weakly spoke. "My name is Hong Meiling, not China." It was a pity that Hong Meiling's weak objection was beautifully ignored by Kuyi. "Welcome to the Red Devil Mansion." Like a proper servant, Kuyi was respectful and neither servile nor overbearing. She bowed slightly to Wu Yan with an etiquette that no one could find fault with. "Young miss has been waiting for a long time, please follow me." Chapter 1722. Under the lead of Zui Yi and under Hong Meiling's aggrieved and pitiful eyes, Wu Yan carried Fran and walked into the territory of the Red Devil Mansion. The structure of the Red Devil Mansion was a bit similar to that of an ordinary city. The most important residence of the Red Devil Mansion was in the center, surrounded by 4 walls. Between the walls and the mansion was a vast outer courtyard with some flowers and trees planted. It was extremely luxurious. At first glance, it was located in the center of the Red Devil Mansion, surrounded by 4 walls. The mansion used for living didn't seem very big, but in fact, the interior of the Red Devil Mansion was much bigger than it looked from the outside. The reason was naturally because of the handsome maid leading the way in front of him. Although Zui Yi was just an ordinary human, he had the ability to control time. That kind of time ability wasn't like Kurumi's, who could only choose a target through bullets and let the time ability act on the target hit by the bullet. Zui Yi's time ability couldn't act on himself like Kurumi's, but it could act on his surroundings. For example, Kurumi could stop the opponent's time and then attack the opponent who had stopped time. Zui Yi could stop the time within a certain range and then let the only person who could move in time attack. The difference between the two was that one could only act on an individual, while the other could act on a certain range of space. Because of this, Kurumi's and Zui Yi's time abilities more or less had their own advantages and disadvantages. Like Kurumi, although he could only use the power of time on an individual, he could freely turn back time on himself. No matter how serious his injuries were, he could still recover. Zui Yi's ability had a large range of effect, but even if he could turn back time within this range, the things that had changed couldn't be restored to their original state. That was to say, Zui Yi couldn't do something like recovering from his injuries. Compared to Kurumi, Zui Yi's ability could work within a certain range, which meant that while controlling time, she could also control space to a certain extent. However, the ability to control space was only a subsidiary of Zui Yi's ability to control time. It couldn't be considered Zui Yi's true ability, so Zui Yi couldn't control space with high difficulty. However, to expand a space, Zui Yi could still do it. In between, The space in the Red Devil Mansion had also been expanded a lot by Zui Yi. It was much bigger than it looked from the outside. Just in the hall alone, Wu Yan walked quite a distance before arriving at the front of a flight of stairs. Welcome to the Red Devil Mansion. Up ahead. At the end of the stairs, Remilia was floating in the air with her bat-like wings on her back. She had one hand on her waist and the other on her back casually. Her scarlet eyes looked down at Wu Yan, who was standing at the bottom of the stairs. Her face was brimming with confidence, pride, and a noble smile. He looked just like a real aristocrat. At this moment, Remilia no longer had that blank and helpless expression she had when facing Wu Yan in the shrine yesterday. It went without saying that Remilia had already overcome the confusion in her heart and was beginning to take Wu Yan seriously. This Remilia was the real Remilia. Seeing Remilia like this, Xiao Yi, who was standing at the edge of the stairs, was full of pride. Even Fran couldn't help but feel happy for such an elder sister. Unfortunately, Remilia didn't maintain this appearance for long. Fran. Seeing Fran in Wu Yan's arms, Remilia's confident, proud, and self-reliant smile immediately collapsed and turned into a trace of anger. How long do you want to stay in someone else's arms? Hurry up and get down. No. Fran didn't even think about it and refused to make a sound. Moreover, as if she was deliberately disobeying Remilia, her arms around Wu Yan's neck tightened. Fran wants Big Brother to hug her. You've been hugging her since yesterday, haven't you hugged her enough? The more she said, the angrier Remilia became. No matter what, get down first. No way, Fran likes to hug Big Brother. Why does Big Sister keep going against Fran? Fran snorted and turned her head away. Big Sister like this is the most annoying. Annoying. Remilia seemed to have suffered a huge blow, her charming face was shaken. Remilia truly dotes on her sister and Fran, to the extent that she doesn't want any man to touch Fran. This kind of overly protective love is seen as a sister complex in the eyes of others. In other words, at the scene, a Siscon suffered a blow because of his younger sister's unintentional words. Wu Yan didn't know whether to laugh or cry. He could only carry Fran and walk up the stairs to the platform at the end of the stairs. When he reached the platform, Wu Yan discovered that Remilia wasn't the only one here. Other than Remilia, there is another person who is sitting at a seat near the round table. He is looking at Wu Yan with a judgmental gaze. He had long, straight purple hair, pajama-like accessories, and a pair of purple gem-like eyes that were filled with intellectual light. He looked just like a scholar. It's Patrice. He exchanged glances with Patrice. Both of them could see each other sizing them up, but they tacitly remained silent and continued to observe. After a long time, Patrice broke the silence. I heard that you are a vampire ancestor. As soon as these words came out, the air in the audience seemed to have frozen, and the atmosphere became heavy. Vampire ancestor. The king of vampires. That's the noblest and most powerful existence of the vampire race. In terms of bloodline, the vampire ancestor is comparable to the legendary gods. In this world there are also vampires. Naturally, as the ancestor of vampires also exists. However, that is a thing of the past. Now, even in Fantasy Village, the only vampires whose identities could be confirmed were Remilia and Fran. Apart from Remilia and Fran, the rest of the vampires had disappeared. No one knew if they had disappeared or if they had gone into hiding. As for the true ancestor, he had disappeared long before the establishment of the Fantasy Village and had never appeared again. This was also the reason why Patrice asked so directly. As a bookish witch, Patrice looked gentle and weak, but she was curious. In addition to her calm personality, she inquired about Wu Yan's identity the first time they met. Without a doubt, this wasn't a wise and abrupt action. However, Patrice didn't intend to hide it. Remilia and Zai Yi also wanted to know Wu Yan's identity. Thus, they didn't say anything and looked at Wu Yan, waiting for his answer. Wu Yan only smiled and didn't reply. He looked at Remilia. It seems like you have your answer. Tell me your answer. You give up on Fran? For the second time, the air in the Scarlet Fiend Mansion froze because of this short sentence. Like Patrice, Wu Yan went straight to the point. But this time, Remilia couldn't choose to learn from Wu Yan. She clenched her fists and stared straight ahead. I already gave you my answer yesterday. I will never give up on Fran. Big sister. Fran stared blankly at Remilia and didn't react. Is that so? Wu Yan nodded and he asked in a cold tone. In other words, you dare to say that you can make Fran happy? Of course. Of course. Remilia confidently puffed up her flat chest. Since Fran is back to normal, I won't let her suffer anymore. Wu Yan sneered. In other words, if Fran falls into a state of mental instability again, you will imprison her again? The confidence on Remilia's face froze. Patrice hurriedly stood up. She wanted to say something, but Wu Yan didn't give her the chance to speak. He turned around and walked down the stairs. Seeing this, Remilia, Patchouli and Zankita tensed up at the same time. Is he really going to take Fran away? While Remilia and the other two were having wild thoughts, Wu Yan said as he walked down the stairs. Follow me. Remilia, Patrice and Zai Yi were startled. They looked at each other and followed. To be continued. Chapter 1723. Lake of Mist. Beside the lake where the fairies and monsters loved to reside, several figures were standing in a standoff. Remilia looked around and saw Wu Yan carrying Fran. She frowned. What are we doing here? Wu Yan didn't answer. Instead he squatted down and placed Fran on the ground. He rubbed her head that's wearing a beret. Fran, stand to the side. Oh. Fran's face was filled with confusion. She didn't know what Wu Yan was planning to do, but she obediently nodded and walked to the side. Remilia grumbled when she saw Fran defying her in every possible way but obeying Wu Yan's every word. Alright, tell me quickly. What are you planning to do by bringing me here? Wu Yan glanced at Patchouli, Sasuya, and Hong Meiling, who followed behind Remilia. Tell them to back off first. Remilia's frown deepened. Her displeasure grew, but she still did as she was told. Patrice. Zui Yi. Tina. All of you leave first. Yes. Zui Yi respectfully replied. Patrice also nodded. Only Hong Meiling muttered, I'm not China, I'm Hong Meiling. However, no one paid attention to her. Only after Zui Yi, Patrice and Hong Meiling left did Remilia look at Wu Yan impatiently. She clearly didn't have the patience to wait any longer. However, Wu Yan's next sentence completely dispelled Remilia's impatience. Zui Yi, Patrice and Hong Meiling were shocked. Looking at the stunned Remilia, Wu Yan suddenly said, Defeat me. Defeat me. Fran will return to Scarlet Devil Mansion. Bro. Big brother? Fran didn't know what to do after hearing Wu Yan's words. As for Remilia, after being stunned for a moment, she smiled. Her smile was abnormally joyful. What? So this is the method. Indeed, this can save a lot of trouble. I also like this method. With that, Remilia's petite body floated into the air. She stretched out her slender palms, and her fingernails suddenly turned red and elongated, looking like the claws of a wild beast. It was extremely ferocious. Remilia's smile was equally ferocious. If that's the case, then disappear. Remilia roared out these words with a tone full of satisfaction and grievance. It had to be said that with Remilia's violent temper, she had indeed endured Wu Yan for a long time. Now with Wu Yan's words they finally exploded. A crimson mist suddenly swirled around Remilia's body, transforming into crimson bats that spiraled into the air. Red bats. In the next moment, Remilia's delicate voice rang out from the bloody mist. VPI day night, night of bats. The crimson bats that soared into the air instantly lined up and faced Wu Yan below. They widened their mouths and shot out red flying daggers. Swish, swish, swish. The red throwing knives fell from the sky like raindrops, filling Wu Yan's field of vision. Amidst the sound of breaking air, they landed on Wu Yan's body. Boom. As the flying daggers rained down, the place where Wu Yan stood was covered in a thick cloud of dust from the impact of the flying daggers, making it hard for others to see what's going on inside. Looking at the place where the dust rose, Remilia revealed a smile. With a wave of her hand, a powerful gust of wind swept out, blowing away all the dust that rose into the air. When all the smoke and dust had dissipated, the uneven pits on the ground were exposed to the eyes of everyone present. However, Wu Yan's figure had disappeared without a trace. Come out, Remilia said coldly. If you die so easily, who am I supposed to vent my anger on these past few days? Don't be so anxious. As soon as Remilia's voice fell, a voice sounded from behind her. The show has just begun. Remilia was startled. She quickly turned around and looked behind her. Wu Yan, who was obediently waiting for Remilia's attack, had appeared less than 5 meters away from her. He floated there with a relaxed expression. You. Remilia stared at the smiling Wu Yan in shock. When did, that's... Patrice's eyes glinted as she gazed at Wu Yan, who suddenly appeared behind Remilia. That's a spell. A spatial teleportation spell. Humph. Remilia seemed to have heard Patrice's voice. She coldly snorted and didn't say anything else. She raised her hand and a dense blood mist appeared once more. But this time, Wu Yan had disappeared before Remilia could attack. When he reappeared, he was behind Remilia. You're too slow. As soon as she finished speaking, a tremendous amount of mana soared into the sky from Remilia's back, transforming into the purest of shockwaves that spread out. Boom. The powerful impact smashed into Remilia's body, causing her petite body to fly backwards with a muffled groan. She flew backwards for over 100 meters before coming to a stop and stabilizing herself. Young mistress, Remy. Bu Yi and Patrice couldn't help but step forward. Big sister. Fran revealed a worried expression. Damn it. Remilia's pretty face was filled with anger. She glared at Wu Yan with bloodshot eyes. Her body started glowing with a dark red light. Remilia's cataclysmic killing formation. The dark red halo covering Remilia suddenly burst apart, turning into countless red beams that shot out in all directions. Swish, swish, swish. Amidst the whistling sounds in the air, the crimson beams of light were like meteors, cutting through the space like blooming fireworks, shooting at the surroundings in all directions. Wu Yan curled his lips in disdain when he saw such a magnificent and earth-shattering amount of light shooting towards him. But it's a pity that the power is scattered into so many light beams and the might of each light beam is much weaker. At most, it can only threaten a low-level or mid-level 8th stage being. Wu Yan said something only he could hear. He raised his hand and pure mana surged out of his hand. It turned into a circle of light that rippled outwards. When the crimson beam of light landed on the solidified mana halo, it didn't make any sound, nor did it stop abruptly without any warning. Upon closer inspection, one would discover that the surface of the light beams was covered in a layer of faint radiance. It was the advanced magic technique from the Nimble Maiden Won't Get Hurt world. Telekinesis. Remilia bit her lip when she saw her rune card was blocked so easily. Let's see how long you can hold on for. With a flip of her hand, a bright red spear appeared in Remilia's hand. Streaks of red lightning flowed on the surface of the spear and crackled with electrical sounds. Kill him. Remilia pulled the scarlet spear to her back and threw it mercilessly at Wu Yan. Godly spear, Gungnir. Shoo. The bright red spear turned into a flash of red lightning, flashing through the air and shooting out explosively. Hum. Wherever the spear passed, the air vibrated violently and space trembled. The Gungnir, that resembled a red comet with a long tail of light and scorching airflow, flew straight at Wu Yan as though it had a mind of its own. At this moment, Wu Yan began to take Remilia's attack seriously. However, he didn't do anything to the Gungnir. The Gungnir was a godly gun that never missed a single shot. No matter what he did to the Gungnir, he wouldn't be able to avoid the fate of being hit. Therefore, dodging was foolish and meeting force with force was unnecessary. The only thing he could do was to block. That was why Wu Yan only did one thing. He extended his hand toward the red lightning bolt that was shooting at him. Chapter 1724. Wu Yan, who was suspended in midair, extended his hand to receive the incoming Gungnir. Everyone was astonished. Was he planning to receive the Gungnir with his bare hands? If that was the case, this person was definitely crazy. Although Remilia's Gungnir wasn't the real divine weapon, it had the exact same effect as the real Gungnir, which was the effect of never missing a target. Wu Yan didn't choose to dodge Remilia's Gungnir. That was a very commendable action. But to receive it with his bare hands? Even if Remilia's Gungnir only had the exact same effect as the legendary Gungnir, and wasn't as powerful as the real Gungnir, it definitely wasn't weak. Even in the fantasy village, there were only a handful of existences who could receive Remilia's Gungnir with their bare hands and come out unscathed. Could it be that Wu Yan also possessed strength on the same level as those existences? In the next second, Wu Yan told everyone the answer. Buzz. In a trembling sound, dense magical power surged into Wu Yan's hand that extended towards the Gungnir. It covered the hand that was abnormally thin compared to the Gungnir, that had transformed into a red lightning bolt. Beep beep beep. Then traces of black electric arcs burst forth from Wu Yan's palm like tiny pitch-black pythons that revolved around Wu Yan's hand and flowed continuously. As the pitch-black electric arcs flowed, the space around the hand emitting black electric arcs actually emitted tiny cracking sounds and began to crack open. With such a powerful pitch-black electric arc in his hand, Wu Yan fiercely grasped the Gungnir that was shooting towards him. Bam, 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 bam. The pitch-black electric arcs flowing on Wu Yan's palm rose sharply. The red lightning on the Gungnir that Wu Yan grasped in his hand flickered desperately. The two weapons seemed to be competing, triggering deafening explosions. In an instant, sparks flew from the surface of the Gungnir that Wu Yan grasped in his hand. The electric currents collided with each other and turned into small explosions. Around the Gungnir, a strong gust of wind was stirred up. Until a certain moment, Wu Yan lifted his head and a cold glint flashed in his eyes. Break! Wu Yan shouted and clenched his hand that was flickering with pitch-black electric arcs. Bang! The red lightning on the surface of Remilia's Gungnir dimmed. Then the Gungnir exploded into red dots that filled the sky. What? Remilia sucked in a mouthful of cold air. Xiao Ye's charming face was filled with astonishment. He actually managed to block the First Lady's Gungnir with his bare hands? Those pitch-black electric arcs. Patrice stared at the pitch-black electric arcs flickering on Wu Yan's palm and revealed a grave expression. Dangerous. Extremely dangerous. Fran, who was standing far away from the crowd, looked at the two people fighting in the sky. Her wine-red eyes kept fluctuating and no one knew what she was thinking. What's wrong? Is it over? While everyone was astonished by Wu Yan's strength, Wu Yan let out a disappointed sigh. Since that's the case, it's my turn to attack. Hearing this, Remilia's heart frantically rang with warning signs, causing her expression to change and her movements to become sluggish. Following the warning signs in her heart, she decisively chose to retreat. Buzz. At the same time, a fiery red vortex spun above her head and gushed out a vast amount of magical power. I shall follow the rules of Fantasy Town and give you a gorgeous rune card. As soon as he finished speaking, the fiery red whirlpool above him trembled violently. Then a hand that was 10 meters long and completely red like a giant's arm reached out from the fiery red whirlpool. The 5 fingers of the hand spread apart, making cracking sounds that even the space couldn't bear the weight of the hand. Giant strike, reverse Titan's hand. The fiery red arm flipped over and stirred up a violent airflow. Remilia's expression changed abruptly. It was as though an enormous mountain had crashed down from the sky. Boom. Remilia couldn't dodge in time. With a muffled sound, her petite body exploded like a peanut that had been hit by a hammer, exploding into a bloody mist that filled the sky. Young Mistress, Remy. Looking at this scene, Patrice, Zui Yi and Hong Meiling turned pale instantly. Even Fran was dumbfounded. Remilia is dead? As this thought arose in their minds, a feeble laughter echoed in the surroundings. If only it were that easy. As if responding to the content of this sentence, red bats suddenly appeared out of thin air in the sky. Like bees surrounding a beehive, they flew all over the sky and wandered in the same direction, gathering into a cluster. Shortly after, the red bats gathered together and formed a wheel that emanated a crimson radiance. Amidst the crimson radiance, the red bats fused together. When the crimson radiance dissipated, Remilia once again appeared before everyone's eyes. But looking at the reappearance of Remilia, not only did Patrice, Zui Yi and Hong Meiling's expressions not look better, but they also revealed traces of anxiety. Not only was Remilia's complexion incomparably pale, but she was also panting heavily. Her noble Gothic lowly costume had also become tattered and she looked extremely miserable. Is this your regenerative ability? Wu Yan exclaimed as he gazed at Remilia, who looked extremely miserable but wasn't injured at all. From a vampire's point of view, this regenerative ability isn't something that ordinary vampires can compare to. Not bad. Remilia didn't seem happy at all after hearing Wu Yan's praise. Instead, her expression turned ugly. Who exactly are you? Why haven't I heard anything about someone with this level of strength in fantasy country? I don't mind telling you. But first let's deal with Fran's problem. Wu Yan curled his lips. If you can't defeat me, you won't be able to snatch Fran back. Stop joking around. Remilia clenched her fists and glared at Wu Yan. I won't give up on Fran. I won't lose to you. Haven't you realized? Wu Yan revealed a smile that made Remilia's heart skip a beat. I've always been going easy on you. The crimson radiance in Remilia's eyes intensified. What do you mean by that? What I mean is that I have a way to defeat you in an instant, but I haven't used it. Wu Yan lifted his head and scanned the surroundings. For example, what do you think I'll find if I blow away the mist coming from the lake of fog? Blow away the mist. Remilia tilted her head to the side in confusion. On the surface, Patrice seemed to have thought of something. Her expression changed and she yelled at Remilia. Remilia, don't let him blow away the mist. Once he does, sunlight will shine in and you'll be dead. Remilia finally realized what was going on. It wasn't night, it was daytime. Since you don't want to admit defeat. Wu Yan raised his hand in front of Remilia's fearful expression. Then have a taste of sunlight that you've never experienced in your entire life. A whirlwind of mana surged out from Wu Yan's hand. It turned into a raging storm. Remilia couldn't help but despair. Once the mist dissipated and sunlight shone in, even if Remilia didn't die, her vitality would be greatly damaged and she would lose without a fight. Just as Remilia was about to give it a try, the surrounding space suddenly changed color. Wait to continue. Chapter 1725. It happened in an instant. The surrounding space turned into a red mist for a moment. It was as though the air in the world had been dyed red. Everyone couldn't help but feel sluggish and unable to move. Even Wu Yan, who was about to raise his hand and blow away the surrounding mist, was the same. However, it only lasted for a moment. After a moment, the world returned to its original state, but a delicate voice replaced it and reverberated in the surroundings. Illusory talisman, Murd meat doll. Along with the ice-cold, delicate voice, streaks of cold light suddenly flashed in the surrounding space and coiled together, spinning in circles. Those cold lights were all sharp flying daggers. The throwing knives flew through the air as if they were being held by an invisible hand. The throwing knives danced in sync with each other as they smoothly circled one circle after another. Then with a sudden jolt they rained down on Wu Yan like raindrops that blotted out the sky and covered the earth. No, it wasn't just falling. Just like before, for a moment the color of the world changed again and Wu Yan froze on the spot. When the color of the world returned to normal, the raindrops of flying daggers abruptly arrived before Wu Yan and imprinted themselves into his eyes. That couldn't be described as fast anymore, but another force was causing mischief. Boom. The time to react was less than a second. After immediately reacting, Wu Yan's body trembled and a burst of magical power burst out from his body. In a series of frequent collisions, all the flying daggers were sent flying. Only then did the people present realize. Holding a flying dagger with a stern expression, the maid exuding a carefree temperament stood in front of the pale-faced Remilia and fearlessly looked at Wu Yan, who was suppressing her master with overwhelming strength. Looking at the maid in front of her, Remilia was slightly surprised. Yi, Miss Yi? Patrice and Hong Meiling were unable to react in time as well. On the other hand, Wu Yan, who was floating in front of Yi, revealed a meaningful smile and spread his hands. I said, this is a battle between me and your missy. If you interfere, I can treat it as your missy asking for help. Are you trying to cheat? Hearing this, Remilia's expression became slightly excited. Just as she was about to say something, she was interrupted by Luo Ye's words. This is just my own decision. It has nothing to do with eldest miss. Sui Yi said coldly in an indifferent tone. Please forgive Yi for acting on my own initiative, missy. No matter what, I can't watch missy get hurt. Yi. Remilia was moved and helpless, but more so she felt sullen. In the fantasy village there were existences stronger than Remilia, perhaps even stronger. But which one? Did Remilia need her own maid to help her? Thus, Remilia didn't know how to describe her feelings towards Ye's intervention. For a moment, her eyes were filled with a complicated expression. Wu Yan, on the other hand, didn't comment much on Sakriya's explanation. He just said this in a dull manner. In other words, you want to replace your missy to fight me. Take back Fran? Although young lady will definitely be angry if I say this, and if others see this, they might think that we're too despicable to deal with the opponent by taking turns to fight. Zhu Yi sighed. However, in the blink of an eye, killing intent appeared in his eyes. But no matter if it's Missy or second Missy, it's my duty to protect them. As soon as he said this, Yi Zichen's expression changed. The space around Ye's body rippled with distorted illusions. In the illusions, glittering throwing knives appeared out of thin air and neatly arranged themselves into concentric circles. They danced around Yi. Mystical art. Eternal gentleness. The throwing knives that followed the trajectory of the circles suddenly stopped and turned into streaks of silver light. They cut through space like lightning and seemed to pass through time. In a blurry illusion, they suddenly flashed in front of Wu Yan. Using his ability to control time and space, Yi seemed to have turned into a magician. His throwing knives danced wildly and distorted time and space, shooting directly in front of Wu Yan. It had to be said that the ability to control time was not only powerful but also very strange. If Ye's level wasn't only at the advanced 8th rank, but the 9th rank, perhaps Wu Yan wouldn't be able to face such a powerful and strange time ability so easily. Unfortunately, no matter how powerful and strange this ability was, in the end, Ye's level was lower than Wu Yan's. He was still far from Wu Yan. This was something that couldn't be changed. After all this time, the system didn't impose any restrictions on Wu Yan's use of Fantasy Village. In other words, not only could the current Wu Yan perfectly display his peak 9th rank strength, he could also use all the trump cards in his hands. Facing Wu Yan in his 100% state, let alone Yi, even if all the members of the Red Devil Hall except Fran attacked together, they still wouldn't be a match for Wu Yan. Therefore, Remilia, Patrice and Hong Meiling all saw this scene. Sakuya, who is surrounded by flying daggers, moved his hand and the flying daggers suddenly disappeared. When they reappeared, they were already in front of Wu Yan. When the throwing knives that could pierce thousands of holes were about to pierce Wu Yan's body like nails, this time, it was Wu Yan who suddenly disappeared. Throwing knives flashing with cold light pierced through the air and scattered the faint afterimage left behind by Wu Yan, who disappeared into thin air. The throwing knives didn't slow down in the slightest as they continued to shoot forward. At this time, a crimson space reverberated in the space in front of the flying daggers, swallowing the flying daggers one by one into the crimson space in bursts of ripples. In the next moment, another crimson space ripple appeared above Ye's head. Feeling the abnormality above her head, Yi suddenly raised her head and saw the crimson space ripple. Her charming face turned cold and her slender hands suddenly spread open. Illusion, K-Moon God's Bell. With just a movement, a voice and a few words, brand new flying daggers appeared around Zhu Yi without any movement. They suddenly soared into the sky, pierced through the space and shot out. Almost at the same time, in the crimson space above Black Knight's head, the flying daggers that had just been swallowed by the space rippled and shot out as well. In this second, the whole world seemed to be filled with flying daggers. In less than 1,000th of a second, the two teams of flying daggers collided head-on with each other, accompanied by air-piercing sounds. Clang, 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 clang. The densely packed flying daggers suddenly seemed to be targeting each other. They collided one-on-one without giving way to each other. Amidst the sounds of metal colliding, they all bounced off each other. Smack. Just as the throwing knives collided fiercely, the space behind Zhu Yi twisted and spat out a figure. The figure extended a hand and placed it on Zhu Ye's shoulder with a clear sound that sounded as if it was transmitted directly into Zhu Ye's mind. Ye's delicate body trembled violently and her expression sank. She gritted her teeth and circles of strange, invisible waves flickered abruptly. Time stop, Ye's world. Heaven and earth turned into a world of dead silence wherever the strange, invisible waves passed by. The air seemed to carry weight and the space seemed to carry color. The wind stopped blowing and the flowers and trees stopped swaying. Remilia, Patrice, Hong Meiling and the others seemed to have frozen as well. Their movements and expressions were all frozen. Everything came to a standstill. In this world of absolute stillness, only Yi could move. However, at this moment Zhu Yi only did one thing. Her pupils shrunk to the size of a needle tip. In this absolutely still world, a white flame slowly burned in front of Zhu Yi. In Zhu Yi's silver eyes it slowly grew bigger and bigger. Chapter 1726. The pure white flame was only the size of a palm, but it became the only thing in this world that was still burning as if it was alive. In Zhou Yi's silver eyes, the white flame burned slowly and became more and more vigorous. It was not until it expanded from the size of a palm to the size of a human head that Zhou Yi finally reacted. Unfortunately, it was too late for him to react now. Bang! In a muffled sound that only Zhou Yi could hear, the white flame that was the size of a human head suddenly exploded and turned into pure white flames. Like a laser, they shot in all directions. The white flames did not shoot too far away. They only shot out within a 10-meter radius around Zhou Yi. Some of them landed on the ground and continued to burn. Some of them directly stopped in the air. During the burning period, it actually caused this absolutely still world to begin to distort. The white flames were burning this absolutely still world to ashes. Well, it should be said that the white flame was burning the thing that caused this world to turn into an absolutely still state. It was burning time. Realizing this, Zhou Yi's shock was imaginable. A flame that directly burned time? Did such a flame exist? There's nothing you can do about it if you think so. At this moment, when Zhou Yi's heart was filled with shock, a voice suddenly sounded in this silent world. After all, even I didn't quite believe that such a flame could actually become my power. At the same time, the hand that was resting on Zhou Yi's shoulder, which had stopped moving after Zhou Yi stopped the time around her, suddenly tightened its grip and forcefully grabbed Zhou Yi's shoulder. Without it, it would really take a lot of effort to deal with your ability to control time. After that, before Zhou Yi could react, the hand that grabbed Zhou Yi's shoulder forcefully lifted Zhou Yi up. Zhou Yi only felt that the world was spinning and her body was sent flying. Ding, ding, ding. Around Zhou Yi, who was thrown into the air, space rippled like ripples on the surface of water. Chains with purple light on the surface stretched out and shot out, wrapping around Zhou Yi's delicate body amidst a series of light and agile sounds of collision. Immediately afterward, the chain wrapped around Zhou Yi's body tightened. In Zhou Yi's extremely soft exclamation, he was tied up tightly and hung in the air. Bam! At the same time, the absolutely still world around them shattered like a mirror. Remilia, Patrice, and Hong Meiling only saw Wu Yan suddenly appearing behind Bu Yi and placing his hand on Bu Ye's shoulder. Then, in the blink of an eye, Zhou Yi, who was standing in front of Wu Yan with her back towards him, disappeared. She was tied up tightly by chains that extended out from the space and hung in midair. The chains were shining with a faint purple light on the surface. Black Knight struggled with all his might, but let alone breaking the chain, he couldn't even move the chain a little bit. Miss Knight's now. Hong Meiling cried out in alarm. Patrice's expression also sank. Damn it! Remilia gnashed her teeth and struggled to her feet. However, by the time Remilia stood up, a figure was already standing before her. Don't waste your energy. Wu Yan looked down at Remilia and said calmly. Even if you stand up, you won't be a match for me with your current strength. Not to mention you still have the fatal weakness of a vampire. Heh. Remilia lifted her still pale face. She no longer had her usual confidence, arrogance, and self-improvement. She no longer had her willfulness, anger, and awkwardness. Instead, there was only stubbornness. Even so, I still want to fight. If we continue fighting, it will only get worse. Wu Yan said helplessly. Even though we've given names to our moves and fought in the name of rune cards, the rules of rune cards don't only stipulate that we must use rune cards. We also have to agree on the number of rune cards that we can use. We didn't do that. Strictly speaking, we've violated the rules of rune cards. Wu Yan shot a glance at Remilia. In addition to the disparity in strength, this battle is over. Over. Remilia yelled as though she had been provoked. No, it's not over. Remilia extended her arm and clenched her fist. The scarlet Gungnir, that flickered with scarlet electric currents, coalesced in her hand once again. Bam! However, before Remilia could throw the Gungnir, her other hand grasped the Gungnir. Pitch-black electric currents flickered on the Gungnir and collided with the scarlet electric currents, causing muffled explosions. Since you don't want to admit defeat, Wu Yan gripped her Gungnir with one hand while raising his other hand that's covered in black lightning. Then I'll have to make you lie down for real. His hand flickered with pitch-black electric currents as he extended it towards Remilia. Young mistress. The struggling Zhou Yi cried out. Remy. Patrice flipped her hand and a grimoire appeared. Traces of magical power surged from the grimoire. Even Hong Meiling anxiously got into a stance, planning to save Remilia. Remilia's heart was filled with unwillingness as she watched the hand flickering with pitch-black electric currents grow larger and larger in her eyes. I've lost just like that? I can't win. I can't snatch Fran back? It wasn't easy for Fran to return to normal, but the two sisters can't live together anymore. God is really unfair to us. To think that I'm a vampire with the ability to control fate. Isn't this the same as not being able to control the fate of the people around me? How ironic. As the hand flickered with pitch-black electric currents was about to touch her body, Remilia's unwillingness turned into self-mockery. She shut her eyes. Boom. All of a sudden the pitch-black electric currents flickered on Wu Yan's hand and vanished into thin air. This scene not only caused Remilia to open her eyes in astonishment, but it also stunned the struggling Zui Yi, Patrice, Hong Meiling, and the others who were about to intervene. Wu Yan was the only one who turned around after a brief pause. He looked at the corner of the ground. Over there, Fran lowered her head and extended her hand toward Wu Yan and Remilia. Furthermore, at this moment that hand was still tightly clenched. It was apparent that Fran had transferred the pitch-black electric currents from Wu Yan's hand to her hand and crushed them. But that was to be expected. Apart from Fran, who could destroy everything even in the fantasy village, it was extremely difficult to find an existence that could destroy pitch-black electric arcs that could shatter space. Fran. Remilia also noticed Fran's actions and the astonishment on her face turned into astonishment. Flan. Wu Yan retracted his expression and he looked at Flan. He didn't say anything as if he was waiting for an explanation from Flan. Don't fight anymore. Fran squeezed out a sentence and lifted her head slowly. Her burgundy eyes were filled with reluctance. Fran doesn't want to see big brother and big sister fight. Fran. Remilia's lips trembled and her eyes were filled with complicated emotions. Why? Wu Yan continued to look at Fran with a smile. Doesn't Fran hate big sister the most? That's right. That's right. Fran hates big sister who locked Fran in the basement and never came to see Fran, play with Fran or eat with Fran. Fran's voice sounded as though she was sobbing, but her face was filled with a smile. However, what Fran hates the most is still seeing her sister get hurt. R1152 said. Chapter 1727. But what Fran hates the most is seeing my sister hurt. These words not only caused Remilia's scarlet eyes to be filled with emotions and guilt, but also caused Ruo Yi, Patrice, Hong Meiling and the others to turn silent. In the past, everyone here had treated Flan as a crazy little girl. Although they valued Flan a lot, they had never tried to figure out Flan's thoughts from her perspective. Only now did Remilia, Zui Yi, Patrice, Hong Meiling, and the others know that it's not that Fran didn't have any thoughts, it's just that they thought she wouldn't have any. Now, a single sentence from Fran had caused them to feel extremely complicated emotions in their hearts. After all, Remilia's status in Fran's heart was clear from her words. It was Fran's words that made Remilia loosen her grip on the gungnir, causing it to turn into bright red particles and gradually dissipate. Wu Yan raised an eyebrow. What? You're not fighting anymore? Giving up? Remilia didn't react to the three questions that came out of his mouth. Instead, a bitter smile appeared on her face. How can I give up? Then why did you stop? Wu Yan looked at Remilia. You don't want to defeat me. You want to take Fran back? But Fran said. Remilia looked at Fran, who was standing on the ground, and the bitterness on her face intensified. She doesn't want to see us fight. In other words, even though Remilia didn't want to give up, she had to take Fran's feelings into consideration. This was the choice that Remilia, who had never respected Fran's opinion before, had made. This choice made Ruo Yi, Pakialu and Hong Meiling fall silent. It also made Fran turn her gaze towards Remilia. She never looked away again. Wu Yan smiled helplessly. Do you finally understand that Fran's thoughts are the most important? Remilia thought that Wu Yan was mocking her. He glared at Wu Yan. Don't stare at me. I'm just telling the truth. Remilia glared at him. Wu Yan curled his lips in disbelief. However, if you still don't understand what I mean, then you're really stupid. What do you mean? Remilia was slightly taken aback. He frowned. What do you mean? Do you really not understand? Wu Yan sighed. As I said, Flan's opinion is the most important. Naturally, It should be Flan's decision whether to return to the Red Devil Mansion or not. It's not up to me, her brother, to make the decision, and it's not up to Flan to go back just because you say so. Remilia was stunned. Let alone Remilia, even Bu Yi, Patrice and Hong Meiling were stunned. After glancing at Remilia, Zui Yi, Patrice and Hong Meiling, Wu Yan flew towards Fran. He slowly landed in front of Fran. Brother. Fran immediately stepped forward and grabbed Wu Yan's clothes. Flan. Wu Yan squatted down and he rubbed Flan's head while smiling. Do you want to return to the Red Devil Mansion? All of a sudden, Remilia, Lai Yi, Patrice, Hong Meiling and the others became nervous. Especially Remilia, her eyes were filled with anticipation and hope. She even looked at Fran as if she was asking for help. You saw how hard your sister worked to get you to return to the Red Devil Mansion. Wu Yan softened his tone and looked at Fran's apologetic eyes. Even so, you still think that sister is annoying. Sister doesn't care about you. Sister locked you in the basement to prevent you from causing trouble. He doesn't want to be with you. Remilia, Lai Yi, Patrice and Hong Meiling were at a loss for words. What does that mean? Is he speaking up for Remilia and helping Fran to return to the Red Devil Mansion? If you really don't want to return to the Red Devil Mansion, I won't force you. However, I want to hear the truth from you. Wu Yan gently patted Fran's head as if he wanted to soothe her inner struggle. His actions were extremely gentle. Tell me, do you want to return to the Red Devil Mansion? Fran lowered her head and hesitated. However, when she saw the understanding and gentle smile on Wu Yan's face, her hesitation disappeared and she spoke. Fran wants to return to the Red Devil Mansion and live with sister. Remilia was overjoyed. Zui Yi, Patrice and Hong Meiling were also overjoyed. But, while Remilia and the others were overjoyed by Fran's choice, Fran changed the topic. Fran also wants to live with brother. Therefore brother wants to live with Fran in the Red Devil Mansion. Me! Wu Yan exclaimed. Him. Zui Yi, Patrice and Hong Meiling looked at Wu Yan in shock. What? Remilia's eyes widened and she jumped up. No. Why? Fran looked at Remilia angrily. Why can't brother do it? This is because. Remilia couldn't find an excuse. Could it be that she hated this person so she couldn't do it? However, he seemed to be speaking up for her. Furthermore, his annoying actions were all for Fran's sake, weren't they? If she said that she hated this person because of this, wouldn't it seem like she wasn't magnanimous and didn't have the generosity a noble should have? Thus, Remilia could only be willful. In any case, I said no. Then Fran won't return to the Red Devil Mansion. Fran also started being willful and shouted. Fran won't return to the Red Devil Mansion without brother. Fran. Remilia was also angry. Isn't it enough that you have sister, Patrice, Zui Yi, China, and the little devil to accompany you? Not enough, not enough, not enough. After being willful, Fran became awkward again. No one can replace brother, not even sister. You. Remilia was angry and helpless. Oni-chan. Flan ignored Remilia and she looked at Wu Yan with a pitiful expression. You can stay in the Red Devil Mansion with Fran. Stay in the Red Devil Mansion? Wu Yan scratched his cheek. But I told Ling Meng yesterday that I would stay for a while and even gave her a bag of gold coins. In the end, I only stayed in the shrine for a night. Isn't that too much of a loss? Brother. Fran's pitiful expression was replaced by anger. The speed at which she changed her expression was astonishing. I know. Wu Yan shook his head. He stood up and he looked at Remilia with a smile that didn't look like a smile at all. This is Fran's request, Master of the Red Devil Mansion. Do you want to disappoint your sister again? Remilia was speechless and could only cry out in despair. Forget it. Do as you wish. Yay. That's great. Fran cheered and threw herself into Wu Yan's embrace. Patrice, Hong Meiling and the released Zui Yi gathered behind Remilia. They looked at the blissful Fran who threw herself into Wu Yan's embrace helplessly. Zui Yi. Remilia snorted. What the eye doesn't see, the heart doesn't grieve over. Invite some guests to the Red Devil Mansion tonight. Hold a banquet for Fran's recovery. Yes. Young mistress. Remilia turned around and glanced at Fran who was playing in Wu Yan's embrace. Her face was filled with anger. Fran. Let's go home. Coming. Fran grabbed Wu Yan's hand and happily walked towards Remilia. Perhaps Remilia was really angry. She walked in front and didn't look back at Fran. Zui Yi followed behind Zui Yi. Hong Meiling followed behind Zui Yi, occasionally looking at Wu Yan with curiosity. Patrice, on the other hand, seemed to be purposely lagging behind. When Wu Yan walked past her, she suddenly spoke. You want to let your sister see how hard Remy worked for her. That's why you suggested a fight with Remy. You're not really trying to steal her sister from Remy, right? Whatever you think. Wu Yan, who was being pulled away by Fran, didn't deny or admit it. He smiled. Besides, it's not like I don't get anything out of this fight. No one saw a drop of gem-like blood floating in Wu Yan's other hand. Chapter 1728. Fantasy Village, Scarlet Devil Mansion. Wu Yan sat on one of the seats by the round table. He was hugging Fran, who refused to let go of his embrace and was happily munching on a cake. Around the round table, Remilia sat at the head of the table. Zakia sat beside Remilia as if she was on standby. Patrice sat across from Wu Yan. Beside Patrice, Little Devil also stood by her side as if she was on standby. At this moment, the four girls, who are either sitting or standing at different positions, all fixed their gazes on Wu Yan. Their eyes are filled with scrutiny and scrutiny. Wu Yan picked up a napkin and wiped Fran's mouth, which was stained with cake. He looked at the four young ladies who weren't afraid of him and revealed a speechless expression. I say, do you have something you want to ask me? How can we not have anything to ask you? Remilia seemed to have been waiting for Wu Yan's words for a long time. After Wu Yan broke the strange silence, she shouted. There are many things we want to ask you. Wu Yan mused for a bit before he said something out of the blue. Let me make it clear, I'm not a lolicon. Patrice, Little Knight, and Little Devil's expression fell. Remilia almost fell off her chair. She glared at Wu Yan. Isn't your explanation even more suspicious? Don't tell me you really have some dirty thoughts about Fran. Remy, you're looking in the wrong direction. Patrice spoke with a headache. This isn't the question we want to ask, right? Not this. Wu Yan was puzzled. Don't tell me you want to ask about my type of girl? Who would ask you that? Remilia almost went berserk. Even Patrice glared at Wu Yan. What we want to know is, when did you get to know my sister and what method did you use to make my sister return to normal? I see. Wu Yan sighed in disappointment. I thought you wanted to ask about my type of girl and introduce me to some cute girls. Remilia was about to fly into a rage, but she calmed down after hearing Patrice's enlightened words. Don't tell me you're trying to change the topic? Change the topic. Remilia felt that Patrice's words made sense. She looked at Wu Yan with an unfriendly expression. You don't intend to say anything? We hope you can provide us with some information. Patrice spoke in a calm tone. Otherwise, we won't let little sister get close to a suspicious fellow. Suspicious fellow? Wu Yan looked at Patrice with a mocking gaze. If you want to say something suspicious. Isn't that black and white bandit in Fantasy Village more suspicious? However, the librarian in Red Devil Mansion often lets her steal books, right? Patrice could no longer maintain her composure as she panicked. You. How did you know? Aya. Wu Yan's mocking expression deepened upon seeing Patrice's panicked expression. I was just casually speaking. It seems that the librarian really did let that black and white bandit steal books. Remilia, Dark Knight, and the imp all looked at Patrice. Their eyes were filled with curiosity. But I didn't do it on purpose. Everyone stared at him with strange expressions. After Remilia, Patrice also gave Wu Yan an unfriendly look. Can you please not change the topic? Fine. The people in Red Devil Mansion can't take a joke. Wu Yan said with a bored expression. What do you want to ask? Didn't I say it earlier? Remilia's expression turned serious. When did you meet Fran? What method did you use to make Fran return to normal? These two questions were the biggest questions in the hearts of the girls in Red Devil Mansion. As mentioned before, Flan has been staying inside Scarlet Devil Mansion since the last time they met. How did Wu Yan get to know Flan and how did Flan become so dependent on him? Could it be that Wu Yan really snuck into Red Devil Mansion without anyone noticing? That wasn't impossible. After all, everyone had witnessed how strong Wu Yan was outside. It was indeed quite easy to sneak into Red Devil Mansion without being discovered. The problem was, If Wu Yan snuck into Red Devil Mansion, what was his motive? Remilia and the others had long guessed that Wu Yan snuck into Red Devil Mansion for some reason and got to know Fran in the basement. Or perhaps he snuck into Red Devil Mansion because of Fran. That might not be the case. Your worries are unnecessary. Wu Yan could tell what Remilia, Patrice, and the others were thinking and pursed his lips. I didn't sneak into Red Devil Mansion, nor did I come for Fran. It was purely an accident that I got to know Fran. It was indeed an accident. Back then, Wu Yan summoned Fran because he was shocked by someone and summoned the wrong person. Originally, Wu Yan wanted to summon 16 Knights Black Knight, who was standing respectfully beside Remilia and playing the role of his head maid. Unfortunately, ever since that accident, Wu Yan didn't recall his original intention. Accident. Patrice grasped the crux of the matter. What accident? It's too much of a hassle to explain to you guys. Despite saying that, Wu Yan had an impatient look on his face. All you need to know is that I have no ulterior motives towards Fran or Red Devil Mansion. No ulterior motives? Remilia sneered. If you don't have ulterior motives, would you help someone you don't know for no reason? These words were not wrong. Logically speaking, Wu Yan and Flan have nothing to do with each other. So why did Wu Yan want to cure Flan of her mental illness? Because he saw it, so he helped her? Who would believe that? You don't need to doubt my relationship with Fran. Wu Yan frowned when he saw Remilia and the others refusing to let him go. There are no impurities in my relationship with Fran. After all, we even share our lives. Even our lives. Patrice, Little Knight, Little Devil, and the others were stunned. What do you mean? Remilia had a bad premonition as she stared at Wu Yan. What did you do to Fran? Sigh. Knowing that Remilia and the others won't let this matter go if he doesn't give them an explanation, Wu Yan could only speak the truth. Simply put, you can think of it as me and Fran forming some sort of contract. Right now, Fran and I share our lives. If I die, Fran will die with me. What did you say? Remilia cried out involuntarily. A life-sharing contract? Patrice gritted her teeth as well. You actually formed such a contract with little sister? You bastard. Remilia abruptly stood up. Dense killing intent emanated from her body. She looked at Wu Yan with eyes filled with anger and hostility. Forming such a contract with Fran, what are your intentions? I already said that it was an accident. He turned a blind eye to the murderous aura emanating from Remilia that could cause a normal person to have a mental breakdown. He glanced at Remilia. Of course, even though it was an accident, Fran is one of the most important people in my heart. This isn't because of our shared lives. Remilia's hands were clenched tightly, and her expression was uncertain. Is there any way to break such a contract? Break. Wu Yan sneered. Why should I break it? Do you think I will let my little sister form a life-sharing contract with a stranger? Remilia's voice was laced with killing intent. Don't think you can do whatever you want just because I can't defeat you. Even though I can't defeat you, I have ways to take you down with me. Patrice and Sakuya also looked at Wu Yan with determination in their eyes. If Remilia decided to take Wu Yan down with her, Patrice and Little Knight wouldn't mind doing the same. Chapter 1729. For a moment, the entire hall of the Red Devil Mansion was covered in a tense atmosphere and hostility, causing the surrounding fairy maids to retreat with faces full of fear. It also caused Fran, who was eating the cake, to stop. With Fran's intellect that wasn't even comparable to a 10-year-old child, she naturally couldn't understand why Wu Yan and Remilia were at daggers drawn. However, she could sense the disharmonious atmosphere between them. Thus, Fran could only tug at Wu Yan's clothes with an uneasy expression. Wu Yan rubbed Flan's head and comforted her. Then he looked at Remilia with a non-committal look. In other words, rather than letting your sister form a life-sharing contract with someone you hate, you would rather let your sister die with the person you hate? Remilia, Patrice, Bei, and the others finally reacted. If he were to perish together with this mysterious being, wouldn't Fran, who had formed a life-sharing contract with him, die as well? This caused Remilia's expression to become rather unsightly. Are you threatening me with Nafra? You don't need me to use someone else to threaten you. Wu Yan sneered. I'm just reminding you. Even though I know that you care a lot about Fran and it's natural for you to lose your sense of propriety because of your concern, you're still a vampire who has lived for 5 years. There are some words that you'd better consider carefully before. The fury in Remilia's heart surged, but she suppressed it and turned her gaze to Patrice. Patrice, do you have a way to dissolve the contract? Patrice was a demoness. Moreover, she was a witch who had lived for a year and studied magic. She was a knowledgeable witch. Not only was Patrice's magic level the highest in the entire fantasy village, but she had also researched magic for many years. Her knowledge of magic was exceptionally profound. Basically, anything that could be found in books couldn't be hidden from her. Furthermore, Patrice was the librarian of the Scarlet Devil Mansion's underground library, which had the most books in the entire fantasy village. In magic, contracts were an extremely important field. With Patrice's attainments in magic, it was impossible for her to not know about contracts. Naturally, it was impossible for her to not know the most effective method to dissolve a contract. However, facing Remilia's question, Patrice revealed a rare expression of difficulty. There are indeed many ways to cancel a contract, but Remy, there are many different ways to cancel a contract. If you don't understand the structure of a contract and cancel it casually, it will be harmful to both parties, not to mention a contract related to life and death. What Patrice meant was that if she didn't properly understand the structure of the life-sharing contract, even she wouldn't dare to dissolve the contract. I advise you not to waste your time. Wu Yan replied with an indifferent tone. I'm not afraid to tell you that Fantasy Village's Sage Yakumo and House of the Lost Yakumo also formed a similar contract with me. Back then even she couldn't interfere with the contract. Even now she is still vexed over this matter. With your words, you won't be able to find a way to dissolve the contract. Yakumo also formed a contract with you? Remilia, Sakuya, and the others looked at Wu Yan in shock. A contract that even Sage Yakumo couldn't interfere with. Patrice's expression was grave. It seems like the level of this contract has reached a level that I can't comprehend. Also, if you want to tamper with my contract with Fran, don't blame me for not warning you. Wu Yan shrugged. Fran was able to overcome all her weaknesses as a vampire because she formed a contract with me. If the contract is broken, I can't guarantee that these weaknesses won't return to Fran again. This is the truth. After becoming Wu Yan's summon, Fran's life force fused with Wu Yan's body. Because of this, the system removed all of Fran's weakness as a vampire. If Fran really broke the life-sharing contract with Wu Yan, would the removal fail? To be honest, even Wu Yan didn't know. However, he couldn't rule out this possibility. It seems like Remilia, Patrice, and the others won't be able to find a way to dissolve the life-sharing contract. First of all, it's a mystery that even Yukari can't resist. Even if Remilia and the others find a way to dissolve the life-sharing contract, it's impossible. After all, Fran's life force has already fused with Wu Yan's body. If they want to dissolve the life-sharing contract, they must first separate Fran's life force from Wu Yan's and have it return to Fran's body. Otherwise, once the life-sharing contract is dissolved, Fran's life force that is still in Wu Yan's body might lose her own life force. It wouldn't be strange if she died. After telling this to Remilia and Patrice, their expressions were filled with helplessness and helplessness. They didn't know what to do. Who are you? Patrice looked straight at Wu Yan. Her beautiful eyes were filled with sharpness. How can you form such a high-level and tyrannical contract? Who am I? Wu Yan met Patrice's gaze and revealed a smile that wasn't a smile. Didn't you already know who I am? Didn't you ask me about it when I visited you? Hearing those words, Patrice's expression froze. Are you really the missing true ancestor of vampires? Remilia, Patrice, Demon, and the others looked at Wu Yan without uttering a word. Wu Yan still didn't answer Patrice's question. But this time Wu Yan didn't do nothing. He closed his eyes. Roughly 2 seconds later, he opened his eyes and revealed himself to Remilia and the others. But when they saw Wu Yan's eyes, Remilia, Patrice, Black Knight, and the others narrowed their eyes. The pair of deep wine-red eyes that were like aged wine had suddenly disappeared. In its place was a pair of cold golden eyes that seemed to look down on everything in the world. There wasn't a single trace of emotion in them. They were exceptionally noble and pure. Looking at that pair of noble golden eyes, the young ladies of the Red Devil Dojo trembled and felt a sense of oppression. As a vampire, Remilia, whose bloodline level was not high, paled and felt a sense of panic that made her want to kneel. The true ancestor was the king of vampires. This wasn't just in terms of strength but also in terms of bloodline. facing the king of vampires as a vampire, it was already commendable for Remilia to be able to endure the pressure from her bloodline and not kneel down. By the time the girls from Scarlet Fiend Mansion felt their pressure disappear, Wu Yan's eyes had returned to their usual wine-red color. His expression also became undisciplined. Don't ask me why I appeared when the true ancestor disappeared. Before the girls could react, Wu Yan waved his hand and said, because even if you ask me, I probably won't be able to answer. At least I won't be able to answer for now. Remilia and Patrice, the two people with authority in the Red Devil Mansion, fell silent. In the end, not only did Remilia, Patrice and the others' doubts weren't resolved. Instead, more questions arose. Who was this man before them? Why would the true ancestor who had disappeared reappear? Why haven't they heard of such an existence in fantasy countryside? Why would such an existence form a life-sharing contract with Fran? Even the creator of fantasy countryside, the Sage of Demons, formed a life-sharing contract with him. It seemed like their relationship was extraordinary. Why haven't they heard of him before? Mysterious. This man before them was too mysterious. Remilia couldn't help but feel apprehensive when facing such a mysterious existence. Even Zai Ye's heart was raised. While Patrice felt heavy, she was also filled with curiosity towards Wu Yan. To the knowledgeable Patrice, who was infatuated with the Sea of Books, this mystery was undoubtedly the factor that triggered her eagerness to solve this riddle. Chapter 1730. After talking for a while, everyone left unhappily. Tonight, Remilia would host a banquet in the Red Devil Mansion and invite some guests to celebrate Fran's return to normal. From now on, she would be able to live together with the girls of the Red Devil Mansion. It was to announce this that Remilia wanted to host a banquet. After all, everyone who knew Fran knew how dangerous she was in the past, especially the fairy maids of the Red Devil Mansion. It wasn't as if Fran hadn't played with them before, causing the fairy maids to fear Fran to a great extent. In order to stop others from fearing Fran and to let others know that Fran had returned to normal, they could treat and interact with her like a normal person. This was the main purpose of Remilia's banquet. Thus, Suiyi obeyed Remilia's orders and invited those familiar people to attend the banquet of the Red Devil Hall at night. Fran was also forcefully pulled away by Remilia and went to the room to have a long-lost exchange between sisters. Of course, the so-called exchange was bound to involve a lot of speechless topics. Although Remilia didn't have much hope, she couldn't obtain a certain amount of information from Wu Yan, so she could only start with Fran. No matter what, Fran shouldn't not know how she met Wu Yan and how she formed a life-sharing contract with Wu Yan, right? Remilia was destined to be disappointed. Every time Wu Yan summoned a character, the system would store a certain amount of information into memory. It would directly instill information into the summoned character, allowing the summoned character to understand the existence of the system and their current situation. Logically speaking, Remilia should be able to get some information from Fran. Unfortunately, the questions were too profound for Fran. Even if Remilia asked, she knew the answer but didn't know how to express it in words. Remilia asked Fran how she met Wu Yan. Fran would definitely answer like this. Fran suddenly met Big Brother. If Remilia asked Fran how she formed a life-sharing contract, Fran would definitely answer like this. What is life-sharing? If Remilia asked Fran why she was so close to Wu Yan, that's what Fran would say. Because Big Brother treats Fran the best. Remilia asked Fran if Wu Yan was a bad guy. That's what Fran would say. Big Brother is not a bad guy. Sister is the bad guy. Therefore, this long-awaited exchange between sisters would definitely end with Remilia going crazy. Everyone in the Red Devil Hall had their own things to do. Only Patrice and the imp returned to the underground library with nothing to do. In the Scarlet Devil Mansion, Patrice had a unique identity. She was neither a guest nor a servant but a rare friend of Remilia. Therefore, in the entire Scarlet Devil Mansion apart from Remilia, the one with the most authority was Patrice. Naturally, apart from Remilia, the most leisurely person in the Scarlet Devil Mansion was Patrice. Patrice's daily routine was to hide in the library and read books. The imp was Patrice's familiar. While Patrice was reading, she was in charge of organizing the library. While everyone in the Scarlet Devil Mansion was busy with their own work and Remilia had brought Fran away, Wu Yan followed Patrice to the underground library. It was an underground library that was very close to Fran's previous residence. It was a very spacious library. The area was comparable to 3 or 4 large sports fields. The surrounding area was filled with bookshelves that were at least 10 to 20 meters tall. There were at least a few dozen or even 100 bookshelves. On the bookshelves that were comparable to buildings, old and thick books were neatly arranged. Some were scattered around, some were crooked and unorganized. Some even fell to the ground and piled up into small mountains. Standing at the entrance of the library and looking at the current state of the library, even someone like Wu Yan who has seen a lot of things couldn't help but be stunned for a moment. How many books are there? 100,000? Million? Or 10 million? No matter what, it wasn't an amount that could be counted. Could be said to be endless. But that wasn't the most important thing. The most important thing was that Wu Yan sensed traces of obscure mana fluctuations from some of the old and thick books. A book with its own magical powers? Isn't that a book of magic? Not to mention there aren't just 1, 2, 10, 20 books in this library. Wu Yan sensed that there are at least a few hundred of these books in this library. After calculating the area of the library and the number of magic books he sensed, Wu Yan was shocked to discover that there were at least 10,000 or even 100,000 magic books in this library. 100,000 magic books. Isn't that equivalent to 103,000 magic books? Thinking of this, Wu Yan couldn't help but feel excited. "Nah muck." Wu Yan asked Patrice with an itch in his heart. "Can I take a look at the magic books here?" "My name is Patrice." Patrice didn't know how Wu Yan knew about her unique nickname, but that didn't stop her from feeling dissatisfied. She knitted her brows and asked in astonishment. "How did you know about the existence of magic books here?" "Isn't that obvious?" Wu Yan rolled his eyes at Patrice. "Although the mana fluctuations of the grimoire here are very obscure, my perception isn't that weak. I can still sense those obscure mana fluctuations. But the magic waves from the magic books can only be sensed by those with a certain degree of understanding in magic. Those with sharp senses can only sense that there's something wrong with the magic books." Patrice's furrowed brows relaxed. "But seeing how proficient you were in using spatial magic, your understanding of magic shouldn't be weak. It's not strange that you can sense it. Then do you agree?" Wu Yan's eyes lit up. "Then let me take a look." Hearing this, Patrice felt a trace of resistance in her heart. Patrice wasn't interested in many things, but she had a unique obsession with books. Under normal circumstances, she wouldn't allow others to touch her books, not even those close to her, let alone Wu Yan. But from Wu Yan's eyes, Patrice saw the same glint as when she was reading. It wasn't a thirst for knowledge, nor was it a desire for the magic books. It was the pursuit of magic. Patrice couldn't help but ask, "Are you proficient in magic?" "Proficient in magic?" Wu Yan stared blankly. He folded his arms and replied thoughtfully. "Rather than being proficient in magic, it's more accurate to say that I have the capital to be proficient in it. After all, my head contains the knowledge of 103,000 magic books." The knowledge of 103,000 books of the demonic path? Patrice was stunned. The imp by her side was similarly stunned. The knowledge of 103,000 books of Devil's Path? This level of knowledge shouldn't be inferior to Patrice's, right? Patrice looked at Wu Yan suspiciously. After asking him a few questions about the demonic path, Patrice was shocked to find out something. This man in front of him was absolutely comparable to him in terms of research on the demonic path. In fact, in terms of theory, he even surpassed her by quite a bit. How could Patrice, who had the title of the largest moving book vault in Fantasy Town, not be shocked? While Patrice was still in shock, Wu Yan went to the library and he started flipping through the books on the magic path. A magic book isn't an ordinary book. It contains magic and can be considered a magic tool. Not only does a magic book contain the method to use magic, it also contains the spell patterns. Generally speaking, as long as one has a magic book and possesses magic power, they can use the magic within the book. However, the words used to write the grimoire were cuneiform from the mythological era and ancient Latin. They were not the words used by modern people. Without a certain level of knowledge and understanding of magic, there was no way for people to understand the grimoire. Disregarding everything else, the 103,000 magic books in Wu Yan's head were written in different languages. Naturally, he could also understand the magic books in the library. Wu Yan discovered that the contents of the magic books in the library were mostly different from the 103,000 magic books in his head. Wu Yan got even more excited and he got even more engrossed in the game. Chapter 1731. Fantasy Village, Scarlet Devil Mansion. In front of a bookshelf in the underground library, Wu Yan held a thick book and flipped through it page by page. He was completely immersed in the contents of the book. The entire library seemed to be extremely quiet. Only the sound of pages turning reverberated in the air. This slightly dark library was filled with a tranquil atmosphere. For some people who didn't like bustling places, this was a very good environment. Wu Yan, who immersed himself in the contents of the grimoire, slowly gained a better understanding of the grimoire in this library. To put it simply, the grimoire in this library is different from the 103,000 grimoires in Wu Yan's mind. They aren't the originals, they are all handwritten copies and replicas. The one who copied these books, if he wasn't wrong, should be Patrice herself. Of course, in this library, it couldn't be said that there wasn't a single original copy of a demonic path book. There were still a small number of original copies of demonic path books. These demonic scriptures were basically Patrice's own demonic scriptures. In other words, the creator of these books was Patrice herself. In other words, the originals and magics in this library were all created by Patrice herself. Therefore, this library had a small portion of the original Devil Path scriptures. After all, this library belonged to Patrice to begin with. From this, one could see how high Patrice's attainments in magics were. Although Patrice's strength wasn't considered high in Fantasy Village, it was only in terms of magic level. In the Fantasy Village, it was hard to find someone who could match her. And now, the magical knowledge that Patrice collected was slowly being absorbed by Wu Yan. Wu Yan has 103,000 books worth of knowledge in his possession. In terms of understanding of magic, he definitely wasn't inferior to Patrice. However, in the end, the 103,000 books were still knowledge from the magic catalog world. Even if he possessed the knowledge of the entire magic catalog world, it was still limited to the magic catalog world. The knowledge of magic in this world was very different from the knowledge of magic in the magic manual world. Many of the magic spells were very strange. Even in the 103,000 books on magic, one couldn't find the same type of magic. Therefore, Wu Yan was willing to absorb this knowledge. He wanted to make it a part of his strength. Wu Yan didn't notice that while he was immersed in the contents of the book, a head wearing a hat quietly popped out from the corner of the bookshelf. The person who popped her head out was Patrice. At this moment, Patrice was holding a thick tome that didn't fit in with the other books around her. This book didn't even look old. It was obviously a book without any history. However, its surface was bright and beautiful. If one were to examine it carefully, they would be able to see through it. If one were to examine it closely, one would discover that there were all sorts of colors on it, but it also seemed transparent. Patrice first glanced at Wu Yan, who was engrossed in the book. He glanced at the dreamy book in his hand and a malicious smile appeared on his face. The Book of the Soul, a book of magic that can trigger one's nature. Let me see if you really don't have any designs on my sister and the Red Devil Mansion. This Book of the Soul was one of the rare original codices of the demonic path in this library. Furthermore, it wasn't Patrice's doing. A book of magic that could trigger one's nature. If Wu Yan was someone who had designs on the Red Devil Mansion, then, through the activation of the Book of the Soul, the nature of his heart would be exposed. At that time, no matter how mysterious Wu Yan was, he could hide his identity, but he couldn't hide his goals and ambitions. It was because of this that Patrice agreed to let a stranger like Wu Yan into her library. However, that man's attainment in magic is quite high as well. Patrice rubbed her forehead in vexation. She looked at the Book of Souls in her hand and hesitated. I wonder if it's possible to invade his mind without him noticing? There weren't many spells that could affect one's mind, but that didn't mean there weren't any. Basically, a mage would have a certain degree of resistance to some magic, and would also have their own means of defending against curse-like magic. Needless to say, magic that could invade one's mind and spirit would naturally have to be prepared to defend against it. The Book of the Soul, in Patrice's hand, was a book of magic specifically used to invade one's mind. Moreover, it was an original codex and its effects were much stronger than ordinary spells. However, Wu Yan's level of magic wasn't low either. Therefore, Patrice didn't know if her Book of the Soul could successfully infiltrate Wu Yan's mind. If he were to be seen through, the entire Red Devil Hall would probably become the target of his anger. Patrice wasn't willing to see that happen. However, if she didn't do that, she would be on tenterhooks if she stayed under the same roof with such a mysterious man. She was afraid that the other party would harbor ill intentions towards the Red Devil Mansion. At that time, it would be too late to defend against him and it would be a calamity. Patrice bit her lips at this thought. Forget it. If I really infuriate him, I will take full responsibility. After making up her mind, Patrice took a deep breath and infused her mana into the Book of Souls in the most obscure way at a frequency that didn't even produce any fluctuations. As her mana flowed in like water from a faucet, the surface of the Book of the Soul emitted a layer of faint glow. The entire Book of the Soul turned inconceivably transparent. Soon after, the Book of the Soul gradually floated up and flipped its pages. Wu Yan, who was immersed in the world of the Book of Witchcraft, faintly sensed an unusual aura. He lifted his head and scanned his surroundings. The tranquil atmosphere of the library was the same as before. There was nothing out of the ordinary. Misperception. Wu Yan immersed himself in the contents of the Book of Witchcraft once more. He hungrily absorbed the knowledge within the book. In fact, if it was in another place, Wu Yan wouldn't think that the strange feeling was an illusion. After all, Wu Yan was confident in his perception. However, this was the Red Devil Mansion, the fantasy village. In Wu Yan's subconscious mind, even though the fantasy village was full of traps, there wasn't anyone who could be considered a bad person. In addition, he had a favorable impression of the fantasy village. At this time, Wu Yan couldn't help but lower his guard. Therefore, this gave Patrice an opportunity to launch a sneak attack. Chance. Patrice seized the opportunity when Wu Yan lowered his guard and pressed her hand against the hovering Book of Witchcraft. Buzz. At the next moment, the surface of the Book of Witchcraft emanated dense, invisible waves that transformed into ripples that swiftly coalesced into the shape of an arrow and shot towards Wu Yan. Something's wrong. The moment the Book of Souls activated, Wu Yan couldn't have missed it even if he let his guard down. He raised his head abruptly. Patrice was quite close to Wu Yan. When Wu Yan reacted, the invisible waves had arrived before him and struck him heavily. Right at this moment, an unexpected scene occurred. Beep beep beep. When the Book of Witchcraft struck Wu Yan, bluish-white electric sparks flickered violently on the surface of Wu Yan's body. When the blue and white sparks appeared, the attack from the Book of Souls seemed to have met its natural predator. It shuddered and it reverberated back to its original form. *T. Patrice exclaimed. The rippling attack from the Book of Spirits spread out and struck Patrice like a shockwave as she cried out in alarm. Buzz. Patrice's body flickered in a dreamy radiance and the intellectual look in her eyes faded away at a speed visible to the naked eye. Smack. The precious demonic Dao scripture fell to the ground, but Patrice was oblivious to it. Her purple eyes first flashed with a vacant expression, followed by a sluggish expression, and finally, it turned into a ripple. Patrice's cheeks flushed red and her body started to heat up. Chapter 1732. Beep beep beep. The dense blue and white electric arcs were still flashing, drawing circles and circles, illuminating the entire dark library. It wasn't until the dense blue and white electric arcs on the surface of his body dimmed that Wu Yan finally put down his crossed hands in front of him. Traces of light flashed past his wine-red eyes. The electromagnetic barrier has been activated. In other words, someone is launching an attack that can interfere with my mind and soul. Electromagnetic barrier. That was one of the side effects of the Electromancer's superpower. He was able to resist all attacks that affected the mind and spirit. Because of this electromagnetic barrier, Shokuhu Misaki's mind control ability was ineffective against Mikoto. She could only control others to attack Mikoto. Now that the electromagnetic shield had been activated, it meant that someone was attacking Wu Yan's mind and spirit. And the direction of the attack was... Wu Yan sensed the dissonance in the air and instantly found the direction of the attack just now. He turned his head forcefully and looked over. But Wu Yan was stunned by what he saw. There was a young girl standing there, swaying as if she was drunk. Her face was filled with an alluring red as she stared at Wu Yan. She had a charming smile on her face as she walked over step by step. Looking at the young lady who was staggering towards him, Wu Yan spoke with uncertainty. Patrice. Yes. Something was wrong with the young girl who was approaching him. It was Patrice. However, the flushed face, bewitching smile and intoxicated young lady was completely different from Wu Yan's impression of Patrice. It was no wonder that his tone was filled with uncertainty. Hee. Patrice revealed a mesmerizing smile as she approached. Marissa, you've come? Marissa? Wu Yan was stunned and asked doubtfully. Are you drunk? I'm not drunk. Patrice panted heavily as she muttered the words of a drunkard. I'm very conscious. Just that my head is a little dizzy. I think you're really drunk. Wu Yan was speechless. But Patrice arrived in front of Wu Yan and lifted her head to look at Wu Yan's face. She giggled. How did you become taller? Who is that unfortunate black and white? Looking at Patrice's face that was extremely close to his. Wu Yan's expression turned unnatural and at the same time he was filled with doubt. What happened to you? Patrice didn't speak anymore. She looked at Wu Yan in a daze. Then she wrapped her arms around Wu Yan's neck. Wu Yan's face. What's the situation? Could it be that Patrice didn't receive any information from me and decided to use a soft approach because she knew that force wouldn't work? Honey trap? And Patrice responded to Wu Yan's question with a nasal voice and a sleep-talking voice. Marissa, today. I'm not letting you go. Wake up for me. You're a lily librarian. Wu Yan wanted to pinch Patrice's cheeks but he recalled something and his expression changed. Don't tell me that you were the one who just cast a spell that interferes with my mind and spirit. In the end, after the spell was blocked by the electromagnetic barrier, you suffered a backlash and fell victim to it, right? That's right. After the magic from the Book of the Soul was blocked by the electromagnetic barrier formed by the Electromancer's power, as the initiator of the Book of the Soul, when the magic was reflected, it was normal for the spell to backfire on itself. Right now, Patrice suffered a backlash from the Book of Souls. Not only did she fail to invade Wu Yan's mind, her own mind was corroded and her true nature was revealed. That is, Patrice's feelings for Marissa. In other words, Patrice held a taboo favorable impression towards the unfortunate black and white. Commonly known as a lily. This witch, who had lived for 100 years, looked like a very intellectual mage and was actually a lesbian. After understanding this, Wu Yan raised his hand and surrendered. What the hell? Wake up. You're not right. I'm not. Patrice nudged her fair and smooth face towards Wu Yan's stiff expression and rubbed against Wu Yan's face. Her ample bosom hidden under her pajama-like clothes pressed against Wu Yan's body. I'm very normal right now. That's not normal. Wu Yan ridiculed and pushed Patrice away by her shoulder. What Wu Yan didn't notice is that the book of mojo that he was holding in his hand had rolled to the back of his chair. As a result, Patrice, who was pushed away, stumbled and stepped on the book. Her delicate body fell. Not only that, but a bookshelf also toppled over and mercilessly pressed down on Patrice. The bookshelves in the library were 10 to 20 meters tall and comparable to a skyscraper. Patrice, on the other hand, was a pure demoness who only knew how to cast magic. Her body was extremely weak. Under such circumstances, she would definitely be heavily injured if such a huge bookshelf fell on her. Wu Yan leaped forward and held Patrice in his arms. He used his hands to stop the falling bookshelf from crashing down on him. Bang! With a muffled sound, the huge bookshelf fell on Wu Yan's hands like empty tie. Books fell to the ground one after another. After supporting the bookshelf, Wu Yan heaved a sigh of relief. However, just as he heaved a sigh of relief, Wu Yan sucked in another breath. That's because Patrice, who fell on Wu Yan's chest, had a pair of misty and hazy eyes. She was panting as she stood on her tiptoes and slowly inched her face closer to Wu Yan. Without a doubt, Patrice's target was Wu Yan's lips. Seeing Patrice standing on her tiptoes and inching her alluring red lips closer, smelling her fresh body fragrance and feeling her increasingly clear breathing and heartbeat, Wu Yan couldn't help but swallow a mouthful of saliva and speak with a hoarse voice. You better wake up. Otherwise, you'll be the one regretting it. For a split second, traces of struggle appeared in Patrice's misty and hazy eyes. However, her body continued to move on its own. Patrice raised her hands and cupped Wu Yan's face. She slowly inched her head towards Wu Yan's face until their noses touched before slowing down. Feeling Patrice's breath at a close distance and facing her misty eyes, Wu Yan revealed a bitter smile. Later on, even if you want to stop, I won't stop. The struggle in Patrice's eyes intensified, but it was quickly replaced by confusion. The redness on her face reached its limit. In the next second, Patrice's bewildered violet eyes abruptly drew closer, while her face drew in the final bit of distance. Their lips pressed together without any gap. Wu Yan's lips immediately transmitted an ice-cold and soft sensation to Wu Yan's lips. He was forcefully kissed by the MQ. The restraint only lasted for a split second. When Patrice stuck out her tongue and gently licked Wu Yan's lips in an attempt to enter, Wu Yan no longer hesitated. He pushed the bookshelf in his hands back to its original position with perfect force. He then extended his arms and embraced the soft and delicate figure in his embrace. With this hug, Patrice's soft body sunk into Wu Yan's embrace. Wu Yan could feel her well-endowed breasts. Wu Yan couldn't help but caress Patrice's body. His fingers roamed all over Patrice's body, making her gasp for air. Patrice's clothes were thick, extremely thick. It was so thick that her ample bosom, which was comparable to Violet's, was completely hidden. Wu Yan reached one hand into the thick clothes and caressed the soft flesh that was smoother than anything else. He rubbed it heavily, causing Patrice to groan. Her lips parted as she panted violently. At this moment, Wu Yan extended his other hand and caressed Patrice's perky buttocks. He then lightly bit her ear. It's still too early to stop. Ugh. In the dusky library, charming panting sounds continuously reverberated in the air. The dusky library was filled with traces of pink warmth. Chapter 1733. At this moment, Patrice was so ashamed that she wanted to die. The Book of Souls was a book of witchcraft that could trigger one's inner nature. However, in the process of the Book of the Soul triggering one's inner nature, it wasn't difficult for one to keep one's will in a sober state if one had a certain level of strength. Therefore, Patrice clearly knew of her every action after being devoured by the Book of Souls. Naturally, she even treated the man in front of her, who had just arrived at the Red Devil Mansion for less than a day, as a complete stranger. He might even be an enemy as Marissa. She clearly knew every scene of him taking the initiative to kiss her. How could Patrice not feel ashamed and resentful? Especially after giving away her first kiss for no reason, Patrice felt like dying. When the other party's large hands reached into her clothes and teased her untouched body, Patrice nearly cried. After living for more than 100 years, this was the first time Patrice had suffered a loss in a matter other than Marissa's frequent visits to the library to steal the grimoire she had painstakingly written and never return it. Moreover, it was a huge loss, to the point that even her grandmother's family felt that it wasn't enough. What Patrice couldn't accept was that the man before her was making the most intimate contact with her. It seemed that while he was enjoying her delicate body, he was gradually grasping some of her body's secrets. For example, her sensitive spots. Even though Patrice knew that she was in an irresistible state, her heart couldn't help but yearn for it as the other party became increasingly proficient in his techniques. She yearned for the other party to continue exploring her body. Realizing this, Patrice wanted to die even more. Of course, the thing that made Patrice want to die the most was her own voice. Ugh. Ugh. In the dimly lit library, slightly hurried panting could be heard echoing in the surroundings. The sounds of lips and tongues intertwined with the panting could be heard clearly. Ripples were incessant. Amidst the sounds of heavy breathing and the intertwining of lips and tongues, the temperature in the dimly lit library seemed to have risen a little. The air was filled with an erotic atmosphere, boiling as the sounds became louder and louder. In a corner of the dark library, in the middle of a pile of books, there was a pile of books. A man and a woman were hugging each other. He was venting the passion in his heart. It wasn't until a certain moment after an unknown amount of time had passed that the intertwined lips and tongues finally separated. Ha ha ha. Patrice gasped for air, her face red to the point of intoxication. Her watery eyes were blurred and extremely alluring, making people want to take a bite out of them. Hugh. Wu Yan let out a long breath and allowed it to hit Patrice's face. He lowered his head and gazed at the aroused Patrice. One of his hands was still fumbling inside her clothes while the other was hugging her waist. He gradually regained his composure. It's been so long, and Mumu is a demoness with high attainments in magic. No matter how powerful her magic is, she should have recovered by now, right? As though confirming Wu Yan's words, the panting Patrice trembled all of a sudden. She was still gasping for air, but her blurred eyes gradually flickered with an intellectual radiance. Just as Wu Yan predicted, Patrice was slowly recovering from the backlash of the Book of Souls. However, the slowly recovering Patrice stared blankly at Wu Yan as though she was struck by lightning. She didn't react for a long time. Wu Yan raised an eyebrow when he saw this. His hand that was roaming around Patrice's plump breasts started rubbing them. Ugh. Patrice let out a heavy nasal sound and finally recovered from her dazed state. She stared fixedly at Wu Yan, her purple eyes surging with various emotions. Shame, anger, bashfulness. All sorts of emotions welled up in Patrice's beautiful eyes, causing her intoxicated and emotional Patrice to appear livelier. Moreover, her lovable body began to twist and turn as though she was struggling. Let me go. Instead of saying that Patrice was struggling, it would be more accurate to say that she was trying to resist yet welcoming him. However, with Patrice's personality, she definitely wouldn't do such a thing, let alone a stranger she had only known for 1 or 2 days. From this, Wu Yan deduced that even though Patrice had regained her rationality, she still hadn't completely recovered from the backlash of the magic. Wu Yan smiled maliciously. Not only did he not release Patrice, he hugged her even tighter. His hand that was moving inside Patrice's clothes gradually increased in strength, stimulating her. Ugh. Ah. Patrice couldn't help but let out a sound. Her face turned even redder as she struggled even harder. Hurry, let me go. Let you go. Wu Yan smirked. That's not impossible, but you have to tell me first. Why did you attack me? Patrice's struggling body froze for a moment, as the shame and indignation on her face turned into a strand of unnatural expression. What attack? If you want to feign ignorance, I suggest you find an outsider. Wu Yan leaned his forehead against Patrice's and pulled his lips closer. His voice was gentle and teasing. Don't forget, I'm not an outsider when it comes to magic. You're obviously suffering from the backlash of the magic you attacked me with. Are you trying to deny it? Looking at Wu Yan's lips and face that were constantly moving closer, Patrice couldn't conceal the panic in her heart. She could only surrender as she was about to be kissed again. I just want to know if you have any ulterior motives towards the Scarlet Devil Mansion. Ulterior motives? Wu Yan narrowed his eyes. In other words, you haven't chosen to believe me, right? That's your fault. Patrice tried her best to keep her voice as calm as before. However, it was a pity that her voice trembled under the stimulation of her half-naked body and the random hand in her clothes. If you're willing to explain what happened between you and my sister, we won't suspect you. Are you sure you won't? Wu Yan said disapprovingly. Even if I tell you everything about me and Fran, will you believe me? At least, it's better than not knowing anything. Patrice seemed to have regained control of her body. She placed her hands on Wu Yan's chest in an attempt to push him away. However, her strength was pitifully weak. If you don't want to be suspected, give us an explanation. Oh. Wu Yan pondered for a moment before smiling. Do you really want me to explain my background? Even though Remy agreed to let you stay in Scarlet Fiend Mansion for my sister's sake, you are indeed staying with us. Patrice's other hand grabbed onto Wu Yan's hand, but she was powerless to pull it out. Her delicate body trembled as she gasped for breath. Since that's the case, if they don't have a certain understanding of you, the people in Scarlet Fiend Mansion won't be at ease with you. Do you want to be together with everyone when they are estranged from you? This time Wu Yan retracted his smile and seriously considered it. However, Patrice wasn't happy about Wu Yan's consideration. After all, even if he acted like he was considering it, Wu Yan's hand was still roaming inside her clothes. Patrice's heart couldn't help but tremble as her delicate body gradually heated up. Just when Patrice was worried that she would lose her head out of fear from Wu Yan's teasing, Wu Yan suddenly pulled his hand out of her clothes, startling her. I have to say you're right. Since we're staying under the same roof, we should at least have no pressure. Wu Yan lifted Patrice's chin and lightly pecked her lips. I will seriously consider your words. After speaking, Wu Yan released his hand from Patrice's body and casually waved at her. He turned around and walked towards the entrance of the library. Patrice stared blankly at Wu Yan's back as he gradually walked away. She lowered her head and took in her messy clothes. She felt the lingering warmth on her skin and squatted down, hugging her chest and lowering her head. Yua. Not long after, Patrice's embarrassed and resentful cries echoed in the library.